Chapter 4:14. Remember in 1 second. This is a wonderful free reading without a pop-up window. Pa! A dim light flashed on the surface of Black Lotus ring, and a jade slip that had just been inscribed was thrown out by Black Lotus. When Suli took it, she heard Black Lotus's proud voice sounded, "I used to be the treasure of our clan. How can a bumpkin-like reincarnation mirror compare with me in terms of the practice method reserve in my memory? That stupid ass can't catch up with me." After blowing his own trumpet, Black Lotus finally felt that he had regained his dignity. He continued, "This is a cultivation plan that I've tailor-made for you. However, even a monster like you has limited energy. You must know when to give up." Suli nodded, "Don't bite off more than you can chew." "I understand." After roughly glancing at the profound secret method in the jade slip, Suli raised her head and pondered for a moment. She suddenly asked, "How much can you recover with 100 pieces of soul stone?" Black Lotus was stunned for a moment, and then he realized what Suli meant. His eyes suddenly lit up. "I was seriously injured 10,000 years ago, and now my spiritual body is only equivalent to a mortal soul. If you give me the remaining soul stones, I don't have to worry about falling into a deep sleep again. Get to the point." Suli frowned. Black Lotus was speechless for a long time. Finally, he gritted his teeth and said, "If your cultivation is higher, I can take you to a place where your talent of Ghost Clan can be improved quickly. Your weak body of evil ghost can be restored to normal within a year. Activate the true talent of the body of an evil ghost." Suli raised her eyebrows and didn't speak. It seemed that she was trying to figure out the truth of Black Lotus's words. Black Lotus finally saw a glimmer of hope. He immediately panicked. "Everything I said is true. Why would I lie to you? Then I'll trust you this once." Suli was silent for a while, and suddenly said, throwing the bag containing the soul stone fragments into Black Lotus ring. Black Lotus was overjoyed at once. At the same time, he wondered why Suli became so easy to talk to this time. Was it because he gave her the jade slip? Soon, Black Lotus realized that he was overthinking. "Black Lotus, you have to recover well. If you can't bring me to that place, I'll use the divine water lightning to beat you back to your original state. I'll just lose some soul stones anyway. I can afford it." Black Lotus's face darkened. It knew that it was not easy to take Suli's things. "Damn it, this is a huge loss. I hope that place hasn't been discovered by the human race." Sigh. With a sigh, Black Lotus ring fell silent. His soul power was too weak now, and it would take a long time to absorb the soul stone. Suli glanced at the empty ring finger and stared at the air for a while. Finally, she turned her attention back to the jade slip. Glancing around, Suli couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Although Black Lotus liked to brag, there was one thing he was right about. Any of the secret methods stored in the Black Lotus ring would definitely cause a bloody storm. Body tempering swordsmanship of the Qi and Blood School, Suishing. Qi and Blood Sect, Fist Art, Moon Freezing Fist. Qi and Blood Sect Saint Grade Close Range Movement Art, Indefinite Step. Wind Style Movement Art, Flowing Wind. Black Lotus gave out 4 cultivation methods at once, and all of them were the works of the top sects of cultivation in ancient times. Suli carefully studied the first, Suishing, and soon immersed herself in it. In addition to the cultivation method itself, the jade slip contained more personal insights written by Black Lotus himself, which made it easier for Suli to understand. Having been with Black Lotus for a long time, Suli was not completely unfamiliar with the common sense of the ancient cultivation era. Practitioners, no matter in the present or ancient times, could be divided into 3 categories. The first was the practice of law, the second was the practice of soul, and the third was the practice of body. Therefore, when the ancient cultivation era was full of sects, there were 3 corresponding schools that were extremely prosperous. The practice of law was collectively called the School of Heaven and Earth, the practice of soul was collectively called the School of Soul, the practice of body was collectively called the School of Qi and Blood. Among them, there were many special schools and small schools with numerous and messy names, which couldn't be counted by reason. The school of Qi and blood was the way of the practice of body to become a sage. This kind of practitioners were all coarse and thick-skinned, with great strength and extremely strong survival ability. They could kill a practitioner of law at the same level with one punch, which was extremely terrifying. But it also had a flaw, that was, it couldn't fight with the enemy from a distance. If a practitioner of law in the top school of law could practice a magic method, the power of heaven and earth would be far more powerful than that of the physical body. As long as the practitioner was not entangled, he could completely exhaust the practitioner of law to death. But in general, the practitioners of the school of Qi and blood had a strong physical body and a stronger survival ability. Among the three schools in the ancient times, the practitioners and forces of the school of Qi and blood were the strongest. Of course, some special schools were not included, such as Chuangxing Path. My physical body is extremely strong, so it will take twice the effort to practice Suixing with half the result. It's the best way to improve my combat ability in a short time. Su Li smiled slightly. Black Lotus is quite well prepared. He even has the body movement and the close-range boxing. The body movement, Lu Feng, was the best choice for chasing or escaping. The fierce boxing, coupled with the advantage of the physical body, would not be too weak. With a weapon in hand, the longer it was, the stronger it was. The swordsmanship was naturally better than the boxing, but no one could guarantee that he would always have a good sword in his hand. If he only knew the swordsmanship, he would be at the mercy of others if he lost his sword. However, I am different. I am not a simple practitioner of law. Even if I lost my sword, I still have many means to use. I can put the boxing aside and practice Suixing first, and then Lu Feng. After sorting out her thoughts, Su Li did not delay and began to comprehend Suixing. She was good at using a sword in her previous life, and her foundation of swordsmanship was not weak, not to mention her physical body. Therefore, although Suixing was a school of swordsmanship, it was not as difficult to understand as she imagined. Soon, the first hurdle of Suixing was no secret in Su Li's eyes. She took out an ordinary long sword from the universe ring, sealed her cultivation, and began to practice in the adytum. But after a short while, Su Li stopped and frowned. This adytum was only used for meditation and breathing. It was too narrow for practicing swordsmanship. Well, let's go to the back mountain. Su Li took the sword and went out. Hua Yan was the only one living in the back mountain, so she easily found a quiet open space. The first move. Su Li's gentle Numa suddenly became sharp when she put out the sword momentum. Then she took a deep breath and slowly waved the long sword. The blade left a faint trace in the void. The sword was chopped out softly and powerlessly, only bringing a breeze. I failed. Su Li didn't care and continued to familiarize herself with the moves. Cultivation was never achieved overnight. No matter how good her foundation was, she still needed time to practice. Time passed unconsciously. 3 days later, Su Yuanhai woke up. Yan Zai immediately came to inform him, but he didn't find Su Li. After asking Hua Yan, he followed the directions and found Su Li, who was practicing swordsmanship in the forest. He couldn't help but feel strange when he saw the swordsmanship in Su Li's hands. It was so soft that she couldn't even chop a willow twig. What kind of swordsmanship did she practice? At this time, Su Li stopped and asked in a low voice, "What's the matter?" Yan Zai immediately came to himself and saluted. "Master." Su Yuanhai woke up, and he became a little strange. Strange? Su Li inserted the long sword into the ground and brushed off the fallen leaves on her white clothes. Then she turned around and walked away. "Come with me." Yan Zai glanced at the long sword and wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Finally, he didn't say anything and led the way silently. 15 minutes later, in the guest room of Ni sect. Su Yuanhai was immediately excited when he saw Su Li. He knelt in front of Su Li regardless of his injury. "I will never forget Master's life-saving grace. This sudden scene instantly caused Yen Zai to be dumbstruck with shock. Life-saving grace. You were almost killed by Master. How come Master became your life-saving grace when you woke up? Could it be that his brain was damaged from the beating? Yen Zai looked up and down. Seeing Su Yuanhai's clear eyes, he felt a chill on his back. What did Master do to Su Yuanhai? Su Li lifted Su Yuanhai, who was grateful with her lips curled up. Her eyes were shining. The method of soul control was successful. Although Su Yuanhai still remembered everything he had experienced since childhood, his fundamental belief had completely changed into unconditional loyalty to Su Li. How do you feel now? Su Li asked lightly. Su Yuanhai felt flattered and quickly knelt down and said, "Thank you for your concern, Master. My injury is fine and I will definitely recover in half a month. I am willing to go through fire and water for Master without any hesitation." Yen Zai felt a toothache. Why did these words sound so familiar? Did Su Yuanhai learn from him? Zai, you go out first. Su Li looked at Su Yuanhai, who knelt on the ground, and ordered him with her eyes flashing. Soon, there were only Su Li and Su Yuanhai in the guest room. Su Li sat down and poured herself a cup of tea slowly. She said softly, "Raise your head. I have something to ask you." Su Yuanhai obediently knelt straight and looked at Su Li with a loyal face. "Go ahead, Master. Tell me everything about Su Li's childhood, no matter how big or small." Su Li took a sip of tea and looked at Su Yuanhai. The latter immediately felt a burning feeling. "Do you know Su Li, Master?" Su Yuanhai's expression kept changing, but he didn't show signs of breaking down like last time. His soul was controlled. Although he remembered everything and his thinking was as smooth as usual, the mental barrier in his heart was gone. Su Li didn't answer and just sipped the tea quietly. Su Yuanhai suddenly felt the pressure and quickly replied, "Master, Su Li used to live in the same yard with me when she was a child, but I don't know her very well. Although Su Li was born by a servant of the Su family, she attracted a lot of attention. I am still puzzled about the specific reason. I remember that my father once told me not to get too close to Su Li. But I was young at that time and didn't listen to him. Soon I got familiar with Su Li." Speaking of this, Su Yuanhai gradually fell into the memory and laughed. "I still remember that Su Li was very beautiful when she smiled. She followed me and called me brother. We were very close. It was the first time that someone called me brother. That feeling was wonderful. I swore to her at that time that I would protect her for a lifetime." Su Li listened with her face propped up and her eyes slightly narrowed. She called Su Yuanhai brother. Why didn't she remember it at all? Chapter 4:15. 34 Chinese Net. This is a wonderful free reading without a pop-up window. Later, I broke my promise. Su Yuanhai looked gloomy. Because of my cultivation, I couldn't be with Su Li all the time. That day, I finished refining my body, got rid of my mortal bones, and entered Lianqi realm. I ran to the small yard where Su Li lived with excitement, but I saw a horrifying scene. Su Li's eyes were slightly fixed. Su Yuanhai recalled the scene on that day. Even though it had been 2,000 years, he still couldn't help turning pale and said with disgust, "Those beasts were eating people." They dug out pieces of flesh from the limbs and back of Su Li, who was in a coma, and ate them raw and drank their blood. I couldn't see any humanity on their faces, only ecstasy and excitement. It seemed that they were eating elixirs instead of human flesh. I vomited at that time. Su Yuanhai covered his chest. I was too young and my cultivation was too low. I was knocked out before I could react. When I woke up, my father warned me that if I dared to disclose what happened that day, not only I would die, but also the whole 7th branch of the Su family would be implicated. I was scared out of my wits at that time, so I quickly agreed. After that, although my cultivation was smooth, every time I thought of what I saw when I was a child, my inner demon would be triggered. Speaking of this, Su Yuanhai suddenly froze. Where was my inner demon? He had said so much about Su Li's past, but nothing happened. Do you know those people who ate people? The calm voice interrupted Su Yuanhai's thinking. He raised his head and met Su Li's still calm eyes. He felt a chill in his heart for no reason. The master was angry. Why? Having no time to think, Su Yuanhai quickly replied, "Of course I know them. They were the real geniuses of the Su family in those years. They are 3 generations older than me. Now they are all members of the Elders' Chamber of the main branch. The lowest cultivation is in the late stage of Yuanying realm. The most talented one, Su Huanli, is already in the half-step of Huashan realm. He has great power and is only 1 step away from becoming the old ancestor of the Su family." Su Huanli. Su Li's pupils shrank slightly. She recalled the indecisive Su Huanli in the illusion of reincarnation. Su Huanli. Why have I never heard of this name? There's such a person in the Su family. Su Li frowned and asked further. Su Yuanhai couldn't help but smile bitterly. Su Huanli is the trump card of the Su family. I didn't know it until I broke through to Yuanying realm. Later, I went to the banquet of the head branch and recognized him at first sight. Su Li nodded gently. This was very normal. Almost all of the 25 clans had hidden heaven's chosen disciples, and they would not expose them unless it was a critical moment. The Su clan was not weaker than any of the 25 clans, so it would be strange if they did not have hidden heaven's chosen disciples. I was careless. If I knew it, I should have destroyed Su Huanli's life ring in the reincarnation mirror. Su Li sighed. It was dark under the lamp. She had destroyed so many heavenly talents' life rings in the illusion, but she did not notice the people around her. Su Huanli's performance was too ordinary. He was the head of a small family. Su Li always thought that he was a creature in the illusory realm. Since Su Huanli has reached the half-step Huashan realm in the outside world, I may have missed a lot of enemies. Thinking of this, Su Li rubbed her eyebrows and asked, why don't I have any impression of my childhood memory? Hearing this, Su Yuanhai held his breath. Su Li. Although Su Li could force to ask, she did not want to deliberately suppress Su Yuanhai's soul. She had to frown and explained, I had a relationship with her. Why? Do you want to know? I don't dare. Su Yuanhai was in a cold sweat and did not dare to ask further. He answered obediently, that is the effect of illusion-arising powder, which can permanently erase one's memory. This poison is not from the Zhozhou region, but was given to the Su family by a mysterious senior. There is no cure for it. Illusion-arising powder, a completely unfamiliar poison, and an unknown and mysterious expert. Su Li frowned and had more and more doubts. Why did Su Huanli and others eat meat? She continued to ask in a steady tone, as if those people did not eat herself but others. Su Yuanhai wiped his sweat and shook his head with a bitter smile, I don't know, but I have some guesses. Not all the people who ate Su Li's meat were hidden heaven's chosen disciples. I observed them secretly and found that their cultivation progress was much faster after that. The implication was that Su Li's meat had the effect of improving her talent. Su Li was silent for a moment. She waved her hand to dismiss Su Yuanhai and fell into meditation alone. In this way, my talent in the previous life was probably far more than the heavenly spiritual root, but it was taken away by Su Huanli and others. Since it's already been taken, why am I still being targeted and only released after I'm dead? Su Li's face was very gloomy. Everything was just her guess. The truth could only be known when she caught the real big fish. Su Huanli is a good candidate, but he is in the half-step of Huashan realm. It's a little troublesome. The soft murmur echoed in the room and gradually disappeared. The next day, Su Yuanhai took the people of Su family and left Ni sect arrogantly. Hua Yan accompanied him to put on a play. Although the elders of Su family had thousands of doubts, they didn't dare to ask more about the process of Su Yuanhai's victory when they saw their head was intact and the lord of Ni sect bowed to him. The idiots of Su family are so gullible. Yan Zai watched the Su family leave and couldn't help sneering. Hua Yan shook her head and smiled, don't kill all of them. Su family is strong for a reason, and the people of the main branch are not easy to deal with. Besides, they just trust Su Yuanhai too much. It sounds reasonable. Yan Zai rubbed his chin and couldn't help murmuring when he thought of the scene that Su Yuanhai knelt down when he saw Su Li yesterday. That is definitely not the method to confuse the mind. Su Yuanhai is clearly sober, but his attitude towards master has changed. I am from a holy sect, but I have never heard of such a weird secret method. After a while, Yan Zai scratched his head, forget it. Why do I think so much? Master will not use this kind of thing on his own people. After that, he really stopped thinking and turned away. Hua Yan stood aside in silence, but her eyes were a little strange. Even if she had not seen these talents from various regions, she had heard of them. She also clearly remembered that Yan Zai, who ranked 36th on the Tianjiao list, would never bow his head to anyone. After Su Yuanhai returned to the Su family, the surroundings of Ni sect were completely peaceful. Su Li and others all had a period of absolutely quiet practice. Su Yuanhai claimed that Ni sect belonged to the Su family, and no one doubted it. At least there was no flaw before the group of lords of small sects who were still healing in isolation came out. Su Yuanhai was not a fool. After returning to the Su family, he immediately started to make arrangements. With his current identity, it was very easy for him to spend some time to keep the secret. Mengqing, you don't have to do anything else next. Pay close attention to Su Yosheng's movements, and report back to me if there is any movement. Su Yuanhai summoned the second elder and told him. He frowned and said, in addition, give her 10% more practice resources. Su Mengqing's face changed when he heard the words, head, this is not appropriate. He could understand that Su Yuanhai asked him to monitor Su Yusheng, but what was the reason for him to increase the practice resources for that demoness? Su Yuanhai's eyes turned cold, why do you ask so many questions? Do you also want to be a head for fun? Su Mengqing shivered and said that he dared not. This is just to sound her out. Well, it's useless to say more. Just do as I say. Su Yuanhai waved his hand tiredly, and Su Mengqing left. He felt much more at ease. Judging from the tone, the head was not so stupid to support the demoness. It should be known that people in the head family did not like Su Yusheng very much. Time flew, and 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. At this moment, in the forest of the back mountain, Su Li had changed a wooden sword in her hand, and she stabbed at a mountain rock transported by Yan Zai. Crack, the wooden sword was inserted into the mountain rock, as if it were a piece of tofu instead of a hard rock. Yan Zai, who was serving on the side, saw this scene, and his pupils suddenly contracted. He clearly sensed that the moment the tip of the wooden sword pierced into the rock, a portion of pneuma and blood that he could not understand burst out. Although the surface of the rock was still intact, the entire inside of the rock had been crushed into powder by Su Li. How did she do it? Even if he had seen it many times, Yan Zai still looked puzzled. He did not see Su Li use the genuine energy at all. Why was it so powerful? Su Li put away the sword and stood up. She exhaled softly, and her eyes were bright. The 9th move, done. 2 months ago, she could not even feel the first move. After practicing hard for half a month, Yan Zai began to implicitly persuade her not to waste time. Of course, Su Li would not give up. She kept trying to stimulate the pneuma and blood, and integrated it with the swordsmanship. Finally, on the 23rd day, she made the first move. The sword blasted out, and directly blasted a bottomless pit on the ground. The mountain slid down like an earthquake. Yan Zai was so shocked that he could not come to his senses for a long time. In order not to continue to destroy the back mountain, Su Li had to seal most of her pneuma and blood, and then she changed a wooden sword before continuing to practice. But after continuing, she obviously felt different. It seemed that she had been enlightened. After the first move, the sword moves should be more and more difficult, but she felt that they were getting easier and easier. She made the second move in one night. The third move, half a day. The third move, 1.5 days. The fourth move, Su Li was fascinated. She practiced the swordsmanship at a frightening speed, which stimulated Yan Zai. If he did not want to learn something from her secretly, he would have run to practice in isolation. After the ninth move, Su Li did not continue. There were 18 moves in the Tsueshing swordsmanship. From the 9th to the 10th was a watershed. Her intuition told her that it was not so easy to cross the watershed. It was more reliable to stop and accumulate. Before, she finally had some speculations about why she could practice the Tsueshing swordsmanship so quickly. I always see the word, Tsueshing, but I ignore that it is a swordsmanship for body refining. The word, body refining, is not randomly added by Black Lotus. It can really refine the body. Su Li clenched her white palms, and her eyes brightened when she sensed that there was a slight improvement in her physical body. Chapter 4:16. The condition that restricts Tsueshing swordsmanship is mostly pneuma and blood. My physical body is strong and has reached the threshold of practice in advance, so I make rapid progress. I didn't feel the effect of body refining in the first 8 moves, but the 9th move improved. Most likely, this is the limit I can reach now. Su Li stared at the wooden sword in her hand and pondered. I don't know if I can kill someone in the late stage of Yuanying realm with my current strength. Even if I can, there are still 2 small realms to cross before I reach the half-step Huashan realm. Well, it's no use thinking too much. Shaking her head, Su Li began to change her practice plan. She spent some time to stabilize the swordsmanship and the rest time to practice the 2 major steps. At night, she absorbed celestial stones to improve her cultivation and refined Sang Lei's cave. Yan Zai didn't dare to continue to be lazy when he saw that Su Li, who was so powerful, was still practicing hard. After giving some instructions to Lvu, he went to practice in isolation. The sun and the moon rotated, and black and white alternated. Su Li didn't relax for a moment. With the support of celestial stones, her strength was changing every day. The cultivation realm of her previous life was still the same. It was just a process of accumulation from Zhuji realm to Yuanying realm, and there was no bottleneck. Of course, the premise was that Chuangxing path was not a bottleneck. 1 year and 3 months later. On February 17, Su Li's cultivation stopped at the peak of Zhuji realm. If anyone remembered her age in this life, he would find that she was 16 years old on that day. It's been 3 years since I recovered my memory in this life. Su Li stood by the river in the back mountain and quietly looked at herself reflected in the river. She was 16 years old and full of vigor. The long-term cultivation did not affect the growth of her bones. Now, she was a slim and graceful young girl just by looking at her appearance. No one would believe that she, who looked weak, was the master of several forces. Bone age and appearance are very deceptive, which is convenient for me to do things. There should be news about the tea party that Su Yuanhai mentioned recently. Su Li was thinking in her heart. Suddenly, she heard the sound of feet landing behind her, and then she heard Lvu's voice, Master, Su Yuanhai sent someone here. Oh. Speak of the devil. Su Li raised her eyebrows and chuckled. She waved her sleeves and flew to the back mountain. A faint and indifferent voice came from the nothingness, let Yan Zai and others get ready and act according to the plan. Lvu answered respectfully and flew in another direction with a surge of emotions. In just 2 years, his current cultivation had astonishingly risen to the late stage of the Gold Core realm. The nascent Soul realm was no longer out of reach, and even higher realms were not a pipe dream. All these achievements had far exceeded his expectation in his heart. Back then, I swallowed my pride and chose to follow Master. Perhaps that was the best decision I've made in my life. Su Li flew to the hall of the main peak and landed. She saw Su Mengqing in the hall from a distance. Hua Yan was chatting with him. Hearing the movement outside the door, Su Mengqing subconsciously turned his head and sensed the pneuma of the peak of Jindan realm in Su Li. His eyes brightened. Clan, and of the land people, Su, and, age, and, Su, and, Li, of, in, a, and. Ha ha ha. You must be Su Jojo, the first disciple of your sect. Although the name, Suyu, was only known to the disciples of Huajian's sect in the past, many disciples left in the last battle. So, Su Li had to change the name. Hua Yan nodded with a smile. The name Li chose this time was really explicit. Unfortunately, no matter how smart those old monsters of the 25 sects were, they would never associate the name of Genius of Jindan Realm with anything. Li, are you going to fight? Sighing inwardly, Hua Yan put on the posture of an elder and said, Jojo, come and greet the seniors of the Su family. Su Li answered, yes, obediently and came over to greet them one by one. Su Mengqing and others were greatly pleased and nodded with a smile. Su Yuanhai, who saw this scene in the water mirror, was so scared that he broke into a cold sweat. There was no other moment that made him understand better than this that, the ignorant are fearless. Master, you are really tolerant. If it were him, he would never tolerate a few nonentities pretending to be masters in front of him. Maybe, this is why Master is so powerful. The level of the spiritual boat of Su family was not right. Ni sect was a little far from the mansion of the 7th branch of Su family, but it only took them less than half a day to get there. After the spiritual boat stabilized, Su Li and others were surrounded by the young disciples of the 7th branch of Su family as soon as they landed. The tea party for immortals was a grand event that every practitioner of the young generation was eager to attend. If they could perform well at the tea party, they would gain both fame and fortune. They might even be chosen by holy sects in other big regions and be accepted as disciples. They would have a meteoric rise. The 7th branch of Su family ranked last in Su family and had only 3 places. Now, one of them was taken away by a small affiliated sect. How could they be reconciled? But when they sensed the pneuma of the peak of Jindan realm in Su Li, their expressions changed dramatically and they were all speechless. The geniuses who participated in the tea party for immortals were no more than 1,000 years old. Even the most powerful talents in the 25 sects had the same cultivation as Su Li. There was only one person in the 7th branch who had reached this realm. His name was Su Fengchun. This meant that even if Su Li was no match for Su Fengchun, she could still rank second among all the candidates. It was a sure thing that she could get the qualification. How can we compete? Many disciples were gloomy and left while cursing. Most of their thoughts of challenging Su Li had been extinguished. There were still some disciples who didn't want to give up. They followed Su Mengqing and others far behind to see if Su Fengchun would challenge Su Li and let them take advantage of it. Ho ho, the disciples of the family are too competitive. Sorry to make Miss Su laugh. Su Mengqing smiled and tried to get close to Su Li. Before going to Ni sect, the head of the family repeatedly exhorted him to be polite to Su Li and not let her suffer any grievances. In addition, the name, Su Jojo, was surnamed Su. Su Mengqing couldn't help but associate it. The head of the family was not young, but he didn't have a cultivation companion. Now it seemed that this was not the case. If this girl was really the daughter of the head of the family, she was equivalent to the young master of the 7th branch of the Su family. Naturally, he had to curry favor with her carefully. Su Li smiled and said, "It doesn't matter." Naturally, she didn't expect that Su Mengqing would have such a big imagination. She just felt that the way this person looked at her was a little strange. Even if Su Yuanhai had told him, this person was too enthusiastic. Su Mengqing brought Su Li into the hall and left quickly. There was no accident on the way. The disciples who followed them couldn't help but feel disappointed. Su Fengchun is such a coward. He doesn't even have the courage to challenge. I'm so disappointed. He is the first in the 7th branch of the Su family. Ho ho, say it in front of Su Fengchun if you dare. The person laughed and didn't dare to speak. The challenge of the tea party is around the corner. If Su Fengchun shows up at this time and fights with Su Jojo, he is a fool. Su Jojo, surnamed Su. There is no such coincidence in the world. I think Su Jojo is probably the illegitimate child of an elder. There were more and more gossips outside the door, but the noise couldn't pass into the room. At this moment, in the hall, Su Yuanhai stood beside Su Li, bowing and suppressing the excitement in his eyes. I have arranged everything, and no one will ruin your plan. Su Li shook her head and said indifferently, nothing is absolute. Just get ready. Now take me to the warehouse. Master, this way please. Su Yuanhai hurriedly led Su Li away from the back door. They walked along the flagstone road to the most confidential treasure warehouse of the 7th branch of the Su family. They were not stopped until they were 300 meters away from the gate of the warehouse. Two old figures appeared. Su Li glanced at them and found that their cultivation was above Su Yuanhai's, and both reached the late stage of Yuanying realm. Were they elders who lived in seclusion to look after the treasure warehouse? As the thought flashed through Su Li's mind, Su Yuanhai bowed and said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, Su Jojo is a genius I found from Ni sect. According to the rules of the Tea Party for Immortals, I will take her to the treasure warehouse to choose a magic treasure as a reward. The two elders of the Su family relaxed slightly. They were clear about the rules of the Tea Party for Immortals. One of them scanned Su Li with his divine awareness and sensed her cultivation. A hint of appreciation flashed through his eyes, and he nodded, it's in line with the rules. Go in. Remember, you can only take one. Su Li nodded and said respectfully, I will keep it in mind. Seeing her modesty and politeness, the other elder didn't stop her anymore and stepped aside. It was absolutely worthwhile to give away a magic treasure for the slim chance of winning the Tea Party for Immortals. Boom, the door of the warehouse was suddenly opened, and the sound came in. Su Yusheng, who was stealing cultivation resources in the warehouse, couldn't help but change his expression. What happened? How could someone open the treasure warehouse at this time? I have painstakingly planned and finally got in. Looking at the large amount of resources in her hands that she couldn't take away, Su Yusheng was struggling. Suddenly, the footsteps came closer. She gritted her teeth and put everything back in place unwillingly. Then she picked up the magic cloak and disappeared into the wall. In addition to the guarded gate, there were many small doors in the treasure warehouse, which could only be opened by Su Yuanhai, the head of the family. Squeak! Su Yuanhai pushed open the door in the deepest part of the treasure warehouse and stepped aside for Su Li to come in. As soon as she entered, Su Li sensed a familiar pneuma swimming in the wall, and soon it left the scope of her psychic awareness and disappeared. Her psychic awareness was unusual. Su Yuanhai didn't seem to notice it, but she sensed it very clearly. Fifth sister ran away. Su Li's expression was slightly strange. Did this girl sneak into the treasure warehouse to steal things from her family? She glanced at it roughly and found that almost all the precious resources for low-realm practitioners were stained with a trace of Su Yusheng's pneuma. She was stunned and speechless. Chapter 4:17. In order to prevent people from stealing easily, the old ancestors set a restriction on the treasury. The storage ring can't be opened here, so you can only take it by hand. Su Yuanhai didn't notice Su Li's abnormality and explained. Su Li was silent for a moment. Then she stepped forward to pick up the two treasures and tried to put them into the universe ring. As expected, she was blocked and the treasures in her hands didn't move at all. The tactical matrix to reinforce the space is probably Su Guohong's work, but it's nothing for me. Su Yuanhai didn't see what she did, but saw the motionless magic treasures disappear. His pupils shrank slightly, and then he was relieved. He didn't forget what happened in Sungjin Valley. The master could even take out the counter matrix board, so it was not surprising that he had some attainments in the tactical matrix. Putting the treasures back in place, Su Li turned to the weapon shelf. She picked up the few flying swords on the shelf and weighed them. Suddenly, she frowned. Although these flying swords were graded, they were still too poor. Her pneuma and blood were so powerful that ordinary flying swords couldn't bear it. If she wanted to fully exert the power of Cuixing swordsmanship, she needed at least a flying sword at the level of a treasure weapon as a carrier. The so-called treasure weapon was one of the grades of magic treasures. The magic treasures in Qingshui Circle were divided into 5 grades. Ordinary mortal weapons were not counted. The flying swords made of common spiritual materials and could bear the power of cultivation were called spiritual weapons. There were 4 grades on the net, which were the treasure weapon, the Taoist weapon, the sacred weapon, and the fairy weapon from low to high. Su Li had never seen the magic treasure of the sacred immortal. She only saw a grand elder in Yushu sect in her previous life who had a Taoist weapon, which had the power to destroy the world. It couldn't be activated easily because it was harmful to the harmony of nature. As for the reincarnation mirror and black lotus ring, Su Li couldn't estimate their specific grades. Even the legendary fairy weapon didn't seem to have self-consciousness. But the reincarnation mirror and black lotus ring had it. Not only did they have it, but they were also full of intelligence and smarter than the human clan. Su Li shook her head and dispersed her thoughts. She was thinking too far. She turned her eyes to Su Yuanhai who was waiting on the side. She pondered for a moment and asked, "Is there a treasure weapon?" Su Yuanhai couldn't help but smile bitterly. The head branch of the Su family may have it, but the 7th branch of the Su family is too weak. Su Li was not surprised to get this answer, nor was she disappointed. She took a handy spiritual sword and turned to the cupboard for storing elixir to take out 3 Dixin grass. Su Yuanhai's face suddenly changed. "Master, Dixin grass." Su Li put away the Dixin grass and shook her hand. She said indifferently, "I know your worries. Don't worry. This thing will only be used on the people of Ni sect and will not be spread out." Su Yuanhai breathed a sigh of relief. "Master, you are wise. I was overthinking." Dixin. Dixin, Dixin Su to be to Su, Su said. To say. To the Dixin Dixin to the Su Su to Su. Dito, to Su Su. She. Family. She. Ancestor she to say that she dis Dixin grass. She to say, the treasure to said. To. Su to, Healy, to. To say, to, he. Next, Su Li strolled around the treasure house and didn't take anything else. It was hard to notice that there were few Dixin grass in the treasure house. With Su Yuanhai, the trader, it was almost impossible to find out. But if she took everything, it would be hard to say. Moreover, the things here would be hers sooner or later. There was no need to rush. Thinking of this, Su Li smiled and turned to leave. Su Yuanhai hurried to follow her. At the door of the treasure house, the 2 elders of the Su family were relieved to see Su Li's dissatisfied face and a flying sword in her hand. She was indeed a kid from a small sect. Her eyesight was not good. She just took a rubbish flying sword after strolling in the treasure house for so long. Although they had a sense of superiority in their hearts, they didn't show it on the surface. Instead, they came forward and told her kindly, "The tea party is around the corner. You have to refine this sword as soon as possible. Don't let us down." Su Li blushed as if she had been greatly encouraged. She nodded heavily. The 2 elders laughed happily at the same time. "Little kid, you are so gullible." At the same time, Su Li and Su Yuanhai didn't walk far. Su Yuanhai suddenly heard the girl beside him say, "Have the 2 elders of the Su family been guarding the door of the treasure house?" Su Yuanhai nodded, and his face gradually became serious. "Teacher, you suddenly mentioned it. Is there a spy among them?" Su Li shook her head, and a thoughtful look flashed in her eyes. "What method did 5th sister use to sneak into the treasure house?" "It's like the crafty art of passing through walls." "But where did Yushin get that kind of crafty art?" "She wanted to steal the resources of those low-level cultivators for a clear purpose. But she obviously couldn't use it herself, and she didn't have any juniors. The only possibility was," Su Li narrowed her eyes slightly. "Last time when she met her, she concealed her strength. The power of the reincarnation mirror is so terrible. Will it make people immersed in the illusion and obsession for a lifetime? Or will it dissipate one day? If it dissipates, will my obsession also? At this moment, Su Li thought very far. She had a very clear feeling that even if Yan Zai, Su Yusheng and others' obsession dissipated one day, she would not. Would the two of them do it? Which one? Do you mean Su Jojo? In the practice room, a square-faced young man in a fiery red robe waved his palms as he spoke. A bright red light shone between his hands, and he punched on the green-gray rock. Boom! Stone chips were flying. Many disciples who were watching from the practice room changed their expressions and dodged the flying stones. Although they were not hurt, many people were still scared and looked pale. The strength of the first senior fellow apprentice is even more terrifying. A casual punch has such power. The power of this move can even kill a practitioner in the middle stage of Jindan realm at will. Can a practitioner in the peak stage of Jindan realm have such strength? In the discussion, an elegant young man in a navy blue robe with a feminine demeanor shook his body twice and dodged all the stones. He smiled lightly. Yes, it's Su Jojo. The young man in red withdrew his hands and calmed down his fiery breath. His square face showed a calmness that was completely different from his fiery practice method. He frowned and said, "What do you want to do?" The elegant young man looked at him meaningfully. "Don't you feel awkward that there is an outsider among the disciples of the seventh branch?" The young man in red took a deep look at the elegant young man. After a moment of silence, he grinned and said, "Su Meng, don't bother me. If you want to drive Su Jojo away, do it yourself. I don't care about you." Su Meng's expression remained unchanged. He continued to smile playfully. "Su Fengchun, you are the strongest in our generation. I admit that I am inferior to you. But I'm afraid it's impossible for you to pass the tea party for immortals smoothly and reach the top in one step." "Why?" Su Fengchun stared at Su Meng. "Why beat around the bush? If you have something to say, just say it." Seeing that Su Fengchun was serious, Su Meng slowly stopped smiling. His lips moved, but no words came out. At this moment, Su Fengchun's expression changed wildly, and his firm mind trembled. Su Jojo is likely to be the illegitimate daughter of the head of the family. Who do you think he will recommend to go to the tea party? The practice room fell into a dead silence. After a long time, Su Fengchun's expression returned to indifference. He got up and walked to the adytum. Su Meng chuckled and followed him. The rest of the disciples were at a loss. They didn't know what had happened. They didn't hear Su Meng's voice. "Master, the date of the tea party for immortals has been set. It will be held in the Shinhong Taoist field of Yushu sect on the 8th of March. All the young geniuses of the 25 sects will be there." After Su Li practiced in the Su family for a few days, Su Yuanhai sent a light cyan invitation with a simple leaf painted on it. Su Li took it and put it away. Seeing that Su Yuanhai hadn't left, she asked, "Anything else?" Su Yuanhai's expression was uncertain. After a moment of silence, he knelt down and said with shame, "Please forgive me for my incompetence." Su Li raised her eyebrows. "What happened? Stand up and talk." "It's Su Fengchun and Su Meng." Su Yuanhai stood up with a red face. "They went to the head branch to complain when I wasn't paying attention. They said that I didn't distinguish between public and private affairs, opened the back door for you, and put the Su family in a disadvantageous position. I don't have any background in the head branch of the Su family." Su Fengchun and Su Meng made a good start, and the people there immediately took advantage of it. They changed the rules of the tea party for immortals. Su Yuanhai's face turned black, and he became angrier as he spoke. Originally, I only needed to take you to the tea party in Yushu sect on the 8th of March. Now, I have to participate in the cultivation competition within the Su family to decide the real candidate." Speaking of this, Su Yuanhai knelt down again. "It's obvious that they deliberately made things difficult for the 7th branch of the Su family and brought trouble to you. I deserve to die. Please punish me, master." Su Li didn't get angry, but smiled instead. Her eyes were shining. "So, I still have a chance to go to the base camp of the Su family openly. Su Yuanhai raised his head and nodded blankly. Why did Master look so happy? Didn't you find it troublesome? Since it has come to this, then prepare well. It's just a little more trouble. Do you think I will be defeated by a group of juniors? Su Li waved her hand gently, and Su Yuanhai immediately stood up involuntarily. He said with reverence, Of course I believe you, Master. I just want to trouble you, it's no trouble. Go and prepare well. By the way, where is Su Yosheng's yard? Su Yuanhai was stunned again. Why did Master want to find the demoness? But it was obviously not something he could ask. He was self-conscious and left quietly after telling Su Li the specific yard. Chapter 4:18. In the wing room, Su Yusheng frowned and was thinking about what to do next. Suddenly, Yu's voice came from outside the door, Miss, Su Jojo asks to see you. Su Jojo? Su Yusheng was slightly stunned. She was now the most senior member of the younger generation in the 7th branch of the Su family. Nothing could be hidden from her. She naturally knew who Su Jojo was. Why does the person Su Yuanhai likes come to see me? Su Yusheng was a little confused, but she still said, let her in. Squeak, the door was gently pushed open. A petite figure crossed the threshold and walked in. She turned around and closed the door. Seeing her back, Su Yusheng, who was absent-minded at first, suddenly fixed her eyes on the person. She stared at the person. Su Jojo. Su Li turned around and chuckled, I haven't seen you for 2 years. How are you, 5th sister? It's really you, sister. Su Yusheng said with joy. Suddenly, she thought of something. She set up a soundproof barrier in the room and asked nervously, Sister, what's the matter with Su Jojo? Su Li sensed the pneuma of Yuanying realm that burst out of Su Yusheng at that moment. She raised her eyebrows thoughtfully and said, You should have guessed that I am Su Jojo. Su Yusheng held her breath and said hurriedly, No. It's too risky. This tea party for immortals will be held in Yushu sect. There are many people who are familiar with you. If your identity is exposed, the consequences. Yusheng, if I didn't expose my identity, how could you recognize me 2 years ago? Su Li smiled. Her gentle voice calmed Su Yusheng down for a moment and restored her ability to think. Yes, her sister was now a reincarnated body. As long as she didn't expose herself, who could really recognize her? Thinking of this, Su Yusheng smiled bitterly, Sister, the plan now is to stay dormant and restore your cultivation. It has only been 2 years. Why are you in such a hurry? While she was persuading her sister, she also speculated the whole story. It turned out that her sister had been practicing in Ni's sect all the time. But she couldn't figure out how she sneaked into the tea party for immortals with the help of Su Yuanhai. Others might not know, but she knew that Su Yuanhai had always been biased against his sect. It was unreasonable for him to suddenly recruit disciples from affiliated sects to participate in the tea party for immortals. Su Li looked at Su Yusheng quietly for a long time until the latter was scared. Then she said slowly, Yusheng, your cultivation is not worse than Su Yuanhai's, even slightly higher, right? Su Yusheng was slightly shocked. She didn't intend to hide it from Su Li. She scratched her head and said embarrassedly, Sister, how do you know? I once obtained a book that concealed one's aura. As she said this, she suddenly stopped. She had set up a soundproofing barrier before. Could it be that that trace of aura had allowed her elder sister to see through her? Then big sister's current cultivation, Su Yusheng thought and quietly looked at Su Li, but found that Su Li was still the same as 2 years ago, like a mortal who had not yet begun to practice. She heard from you, that Su Jojo had the cultivation of the peak of Jindan realm. Could it be, Su Yusheng thinks a lot in an instant. She can cultivate to gathering vitality in just over 1,000 years. Of course, she is not stupid. Good concealment method. No wonder the whole 7th branch of Su family doesn't know your real cultivation. Su Li looked at Su Yusheng, who was thoughtful and knew that she had guessed something. But she didn't care and continued, I didn't care about your aura last time. In this way, it is more convenient. Do you remember what I said 2 years ago? Su Yusheng looked at Su Li in a daze. Even though she knew that her elder sister was careful and hid it from her for safety, she inevitably felt bitter and cold when she thought that she almost stole the Su family's treasure house in order to collect Su Li's cultivation resources over the years. Su Li shook her head and laughed. Her voice was sincere, it's my fault this time. Don't steal things from the treasure house again. Although your magic treasure is magical, it can't prevent people from probing. You can't take risks. Do you understand? Su Yosheng's face suddenly turned red when she heard this. It turned out that her elder sister knew everything. Then she didn't have to feel wronged. Taking a deep breath, the bitterness in Su Yosheng's heart dissipated, and a smile appeared on her face. Of course I remember what you said. One day, I will take charge of Su family and follow your orders. On the first day of March, Su Yuanhai took Su Li and the other two to the head branch of Su family. They didn't encounter any difficulties and settled in the guest room smoothly. Soon after settling in, Su Li saw Su Yuanhai leave the guest room with a gloomy face. He was probably summoned by the head branch. The second Tianyu lotus of Su family should be ripe. I missed the first one in my previous life. I can't miss it this time. Su Li muttered to herself. Sitting on the ground, she pretended to be bored and drew circles. But her psychic awareness quietly spread out and penetrated into the ground. The psychic awareness cultivated by others was extremely difficult to penetrate the soil wall even if it transformed into the divine awareness. But Su Li found that she was different. She didn't feel any hindrance, as if both the ground and the wall were illusory. Su Li guessed that the mutation of her psychic awareness probably came from the body of evil ghost. But the Black Lotus was still asleep after absorbing the soul stone for 2 years, so she couldn't find anyone to ask. Halfway through the exploration, Su Li sensed that the underground spiritual power was gathering in one place. She was about to release more psychic awareness into the underground. Suddenly, she sensed 2 gazes. Su Jojo. Su Li recalled all her psychic awareness instantly. She looked up and saw 2 young men standing at the door. She glanced at them and asked with a smile, Su Fengchun? Su Meng. Although Su Fengchun didn't look happy, he still nodded. But Su Meng said coldly, you are just a disciple of an affiliated sect. You don't kneel when you see us and dare to call my name directly. Do you know your crime? Know my crime? Su Li raised her eyebrows. She really couldn't arouse the interest of these 2 who were not even the top among practitioners of Jindan realm. But sometimes, there were always some people who didn't know how to write the word, death. If you have time to show off in front of me, you'd better practice, so that you won't be eliminated tomorrow and shoot yourself in the foot. Su Li replied indifferently. She didn't look at Su Meng, who was in a rage. Instead, she turned to stare at Su Fengchun and said bluntly, although you are at the peak of Jindan realm, I'm afraid that you can't even enter the top 21 among the disciples of the Su family. The Tea Party for Immortals is of great importance. Each branch of the Su family sends 3 people to participate in the Tea Party, which is a kind of protection for the weaker branches. But this time, it was destroyed by you. Do you know how many heads of branches want to kill you? Huh? After hearing this, Su Fengchun's gloomy face instantly turned pale, and his forehead was covered with sweat. Su Meng, who was about to lose his temper, felt a chill in his heart as if a basin of cold water had been poured on him. How could this be? They didn't expect this at all. Now that Su Li pointed it out, they immediately felt a sense of crisis. If the heads of the other 5 branches really vented their anger on them, would Su Yuanhai help them? Even if he was willing, could he stop them? Su Li waved her hand and sighed, go back and think about how to save your life. I really don't know what you are thinking about now that you still have time to trouble me. Su Fengchun and Su Meng were a little confused. They left in a daze, full of worries. The moment the head changed the rules, they felt something was wrong, as if they were also trapped. But they never thought that the situation would be so serious. The head didn't mention it to me. Is it because he is too disappointed with us? Has he given up on me? Su Fengchun and Su Meng both thought the worst. The more they thought about it, the worse they felt. They didn't notice the trap in Su Li's words. The strength gap between practitioners at the peak of Jindan realm was not big. If the Su family could really find 21 practitioners at the peak of Jindan realm, Yushu's sect would have been pulled down from the position of the first sect. Su Li smiled. These two people were still too young. They were deceived by her in a few words. It was good for them to be stupid, so as to avoid trouble for her. In the evening, Su Yuanhai returned to the courtyard of the guest room. He glanced at Su Fengchun and Su Meng's room, which was still lit. He didn't care about it and turned to Su Li's room. Before he reached the door, he heard a voice in his mind. Push the door open and come in. The door is not closed. Su Yuanhai remained calm and entered the room as Su Li said. Su Fengchun and Su Meng were more discouraged when they saw this scene. Su Fengchun regretted and even hated Su Meng. If it weren't for his idea to search, how could he fall into such an embarrassing situation? At this moment, Su Yuanhai was reporting the situation in Su Li's room. Master, things are much better than I thought. Su Yuanhai was relaxed. This time the head branch suddenly changed the rules, which also affected the interests of other branches. After some debate, the head branch had to make a concession and adopt a random drawing system tomorrow. The head branch will send 4 teams, and the second branch and the third branch will send 3 teams each. 14 teams will fight against each other. The winner will stay, and the loser will leave. Su Li nodded, that is to say, as long as we are lucky enough to meet a weak team, we can easily win. Exactly. Su Li showed a thoughtful expression. The foundation of the first 3 branches of the Su family was completely different from that of the last 4 branches. They sent more people, and almost all the participants were second-rate disciples. If the last 4 branches couldn't win, they couldn't say anything. In general, the last 4 branches still suffered losses. The 7 branches of the Su family are not united. It is a good thing for me to deepen the contradiction this time. In this way, the 2 boys hit the right target and helped me. Su Li shook off the thought and didn't think more. She didn't care about the so-called internal selection at all. Tianyu Lotus was the most important thing. Keep an eye on me at night. No matter who is looking for me, stop him. In addition, give me the internal safety route of the head branch. Su Li gave a series of orders, and Su Yuanhai agreed repeatedly. He didn't ask any more questions and left after giving the route map to Su Li. After getting the route map, Su Li took off the heavy soul robe, and her spirit and physical body immediately got rid of the shackles. The Grand Elder of the Su family was in Huashan realm, so she naturally needed to deal with him carefully. Seeing that the night was getting darker, she didn't delay any longer. She turned into a black shadow and rushed to the detected location along the safe route. Chapter 419. At night, Su Li walked openly on the path near the herb garden in the back mountain of the Su family. There were many tactical matrices in the mansion of the head family. Even the people of the Su family couldn't go out safely without a road map. So, Su Li didn't see many patrolling disciples along the way. The Su family would never expect that Su Yuanhai, the head of the 7th branch, would be controlled and leak the safety route. Of course, it was not difficult for Su Li to pass through these tactical matrices with her level of tactical matrix, but she didn't have enough time. She had only one night to participate in the so-called selection battle tomorrow. A moment later, the path came to an end. Sensing the pneumas of 2 practitioners of Yuanying realm not far in front of her, Su Li hid her figure and blended into the night. A cave brightly illuminated by lights came into view. At the entrance of the cave, 2 elders of Yuanying realm sat quietly on the ground and spread their divine awareness around. Not to mention a living person, even a mosquito would not be let in. It's heavily guarded. Suli narrowed her eyes and quietly stepped back for a distance. Then she took out a cloak magic weapon from the universe ring. Cloak of Earth Element. As long as it was activated by the power of the soul, it could freely shuttle through the rocks and soil. It was extremely wonderful. Needless to say, the origin of this thing was needless to say. Since Su Yuanhai said that they could go to the head branch of the Su family, Suli borrowed this magic weapon from Su Yusheng. Her soul was much stronger than Su Yusheng's, so she could use it freely after getting familiar with it. So what if two Yuanying realm are guarding dogs? With a smile, Suli put on the cloak and blended into the ground. At this moment, she was surprisingly similar to Su Yusheng's behavior when she stole the treasure house last time. However, the value of the natural treasure in the cave might be much higher than the whole treasure house of the 7th branch of the Su family. She blended into the ground less than 10 feet deep. Suli kept going along the direction of the cave and occasionally heard footsteps coming from above. There are also people patrolling the passage. In the darkness, Suli smiled coldly. After 1,000 years, it's time to return it to its original owner. With a single thought, her soul poured into the cloak. Her speed immediately increased as she drilled into the depths of the underground cave. After a while, the passage began to slope down, and the soil became more and more humid. Suli, wrapped in a cloak, didn't care about it, and her speed didn't decrease. After a few breaths, she suddenly stopped, and almost touched a crystal purple root. At this time, there was a faint conversation above her head. "We've arrived." A sharp light flashed in Suli's eyes, but she operated the all-spirits tactics to the extreme, and wrapped it in the cloak. She was motionless, like a silent stone in the ground. The conversation gradually became clear. "Tianyu lotus is about to ripen. Su Huanji, do you dare to say that you have no other thoughts?" "He, 4th brother, you're talking nonsense. Who dares to rob Su Huanli's things? He won't care whose offspring we are. Even if he kills us, the elders will just turn a blind eye. Let's wait for the Tianyu lotus to mature and inform him. Don't have any evil thoughts." The person who was called 4th brother immediately became silent. After a long time, he coldly snorted in dissatisfaction and became silent. Suli heard the conversation between the two and thought. These two people were not old, but their cultivation was not weak. After a little investigation, she found that they were at least in the middle stage of Yuanying realm. No wonder they were interested in the Tianyu lotus. But Su Huanli was in the half-step Huashan realm, and the Tianyu lotus was more useful to him. Maybe it could help him break through directly and let the Su family have one more grand elder. Mingjing lotus. Suddenly, a surprised voice sounded in the awareness sea. Suli blinked her eyes. "Have you absorbed all the soul stones?" As soon as the thought came out, Suli sensed that black lotus ring reappeared on her finger, and its color was deeper than before. "Of course. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the energy to talk to you. But as soon as I opened my eyes, I saw the Mingjing lotus. Your cloak is also not simple. It seems that you have a lot of luck in the past 2 years. Can you get me some more soul stones?" Black Lotus, whose injury had slightly recovered, was obviously a little inflated. Suli was not in the mood to deal with him for the time being, and asked bluntly, "You said that this thing was called Mingjing lotus in ancient times? Now it is Tianyu lotus, which can make people enter the empty mirror, and the perception of the half-step Huashan realm has a chance to break through to the real Huashan realm and reach the top of Jojo region." Black Lotus laughed and said, "You're right. This treasure is indeed helpful for breaking through to Huashan realm, but if it is really used to break through the mirror, it is undoubtedly a reckless waste of God's gift." "Then what should I use it for?" Suli frowned slightly. If Black Lotus didn't say it, she would probably use Tianyu lotus for breaking through to the half-step Huashan realm. "Little Suli, you are still a little stupid." Black Lotus slept for a while and seemed to forget the fear of being threatened by Suli at that time. He crazily said, Aren't you practicing the swordsmanship of Tsueshing that I gave you? Which sword move have you practiced now? You should have 3 sword moves in 2 years, right? Su Li nodded. The 9th sword move is perfect. What do you want to say? Black Lotus nodded with relief, and then suddenly felt something wrong. He almost thought that he had heard it wrong, and couldn't help but ask, wait. How many sword moves did you say? Su Li said indifferently, you didn't hear it wrong. The 9th sword move. Crack. Black Lotus ring couldn't turn anymore. It disappeared from Su Li's finger and hid in a corner of her body, shivering. 3 sword moves in 2 years. No one could do it in ancient times. Damn. 9 sword moves in 2 years. Did I really only sleep for 2 years, not 200 years? 2,000 years? How could it be so fast? Black Lotus fell into serious self-doubt and was very sad and indignant. Is I really going to be defeated by this girl? Seeing Black Lotus ring hiding, Su Li didn't care and concentrated on waiting for the opportunity. After a while, there was a fluctuation in Su Li's eyes. The 2 people talked again. Third brother, I just don't want to. Why? Why does Su Huanli always practice faster than us? We were the ones who ate the treasure in those years. Su Huani, shut up. Do you know what you are talking about? Third brother, don't pretend. There is no one else here. What's wrong with me talking about it? There are not many pieces of meat on the treasure. After a long time, there are only more than 20 pieces of meat. We divided them equally in those years. Logically speaking, our cultivation speed should be the same. But Su Huanli is faster than us. Third brother, don't you doubt anything? The older man stopped talking, but his breath was much heavier. Obviously, he was extremely uncalm inside. At that time, we ate it until its bones were white. But after a few months, its meat grew up. If we were bold enough to dig a few more pieces at that time, maybe Su Huanli would do it. Is it useful to say this now? He has been dead for 1,000 years, but you still can't forget it. I just don't want to. The treasure belongs to our Su family. Why should we let those bastards of Yushu sect take advantage of it? Damn it. It's a taboo for Su family to embezzle the flesh and blood of the treasure. If that person is not dead and no evidence is found by the powerful figures of holy sects, we will definitely be in big trouble. In the future, we'd better not say this kind of words. I know. I have a sense of propriety. You don't have to envy him. In the past 1,000 years, Su Huanli's cultivation has advanced too fast. He has an evil talent and has been targeted by many people. With him in front of us, our pressure will be much less. You are optimistic. The man snorted and said no more. Under the ground, Su Li's pupils were deep and her face was full of anger. Originally, she just wanted to take away what belonged to her, but now, she changed her mind. She shook her shoulders slightly, and the black cat fell down. It opened its eyes and looked at Su Li with a confused look. In front of the Tianyu lotus pond, 2 middle-aged men sat absent-mindedly on one side with their legs crossed. They didn't notice a strange change in the surrounding space. The older middle-aged practitioner vaguely felt something was wrong. His psychic awareness scanned the catacombs, but found nothing. He thought he was too nervous, so he was about to withdraw his psychic awareness. Suddenly, the surface of the catacombs shook slightly, as if a heavy object fell. The brothers of the Su family immediately changed their expressions and stood up. The triangular-eyed man in a black and purple Taoist robe said seriously, "Fourth brother, did you feel it?" Another middle-aged man with a broad face nodded almost imperceptibly. His eyes scanned the surroundings. That vibration was definitely not an illusion. Is it possible that there is a grand elder practicing in the sky above the ground in the middle of the night? The triangular-eyed man still didn't think it was the problem in the catacombs. He was about to walk around and look around. Suddenly, a black shadow appeared in front of him without warning. The two brothers of the Su family were shocked and retreated subconsciously. But halfway, they found that it was a very cute black cat in front of them. Su Huani was instantly confused. What happened? A cat suddenly appeared in the middle of the night. How did the cat get in? Where were the people outside? Guards. Su Huanji was a little older. Although the cat in front of him didn't seem to be harmful, he was ready to summon people and treat it cautiously. Unfortunately, they missed the best opportunity when they were in a daze. Guards. Guards. Guards, the voice echoed in the catacombs. Su Huanji waited for a long time, but he didn't see anyone coming in from outside. At this moment, the two finally changed their expressions and shot out at the same time. But halfway, the scene in front of them changed. When they looked back, they actually returned to the original place. The tactical matrix is at least above the 9th grade. Su Huanji's face became more and more gloomy. When was it set up? Did the black cat distract us for a moment? Third brother. Su Huani shouted. Su Huanji suddenly raised his head and suddenly saw a looming figure of a girl approaching slowly. On her shoulder, the black cat yawned and showed disdain. I have a master. You two scumbags. You are not friendly. Su Huanji's heart thumped, but he pretended to be calm on the surface. He cupped his hands and said, Why did you come here? This is the secret place of our Su family. If you leave now, I just want to ask you one question. Su Li opened her red lips slightly. What is the treasure animal? Or, who is it? Chapter 420. The two brothers of the Su family were slightly shocked. Their previous conversation was heard by this woman. Don't talk. Su Li approached them slowly. She said in a casual tone, but she exuded a strong pressure. Then let me guess. The so-called treasure animal is the holy girl Su Li, right? Hearing this, Su Huanji and Su Huani's pupils suddenly shrank. Damn it! This matter can't be leaked. Kill her. The two brothers' eyes were red. They didn't need to communicate. Without saying a word, they attacked with all their strength. Two precious flying swords pierced at Su Li's face in an instant. They scratched the air and made a harsh sound. Go to hell. At this moment, Su Li waved her palm lightly. A layer of transparent barrier appeared in front of her. The two flying swords pierced it and made a crisp sound. The barrier immediately burst, and the flying swords couldn't move forward. Did you stop it? What tactical matrix is this? Su Huani's expression changed slightly, and then he said fiercely, You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. How dare you be presumptuous in front of me in Zhuji realm? I will let you know that the tactical matrix is not omnipotent. He turned his palm and threw out a transparent round stone glowing with blue light. Melt. The round stone turned into water in the blink of an eye and melted into the ground. The successful tactical matrix for camouflage immediately shook, and the hole leading to the outside loomed. Seeing this, Su Huanji immediately seized the opportunity to pinch the sword formula and was about to cut off Su Li's head. But seeing that the girl in front of him didn't panic or despair, he faintly felt that something was wrong. Bang! As expected, the flying sword was blocked again in the next moment. This time, it was not a tactical matrix shield, but Su Li's hand. The incomparably sharp treasured flying sword was actually easily pinched by this girl. She was not in Zhuji realm at all. Su Huanji was shocked. He tried his best to drive the flying sword to break free. His face turned red, but the flying sword didn't move at all. Third brother, let me help you. Su Huani shouted. Su Huanji was a little moved. When he turned back, he saw his fourth brother rushing out without looking back. He didn't want to help him at all. Su Huani. Su Huanji roared. Seeing that Su Huani was about to break through the tactical matrix for camouflage, Su Li suddenly loosened her fingers and sighed, "The Su family is so boring." Before he finished his words, Su Huanji's flying sword trembled and suddenly disappeared. The next moment, Su Huanji saw his flying sword appear behind Su Huani silently. The arrow pierced through Su Huani's heart and the nascent soul in his heart. "Third brother, you want to kill me?" Looking at the flying sword in front of his chest, Su Huani was at a loss. When he turned around, he saw Su Huanji spitting out blood and looking shocked. Before he could find the answer, Su Huanji collapsed to the ground. His breathing gradually weakened, and a pool of red gradually spread along the wound. "The night is still young. Since you want to die early, I will fulfill your wish." Su Li's eyes were indifferent. She moved her fingers, and the flying sword and Su Huani's universe ring flew into her hand. Seeing this scene, Su Huanji's body trembled uncontrollably. The woman in front of him was definitely not at the level of laying foundation. She even erased the control of his flying sword in an instant and forcibly refined it into her possession. Was she, above the Huashan realm? Boom! The surrounding nothingness vibrated, and the tactical matrix stabilized again. Su Li's eyes were fixed, and she summoned the magic treasure which had returned to a blue ball. After a rough look, she put it away and looked at Su Huanji. She also had a preliminary definition of her own strength. "My strength should be far beyond the middle stage of Yuanying realm now. No matter what kind of strange skills Su Huani has, I will kill all the people like him." Su Li calculated in her heart. The so-called strength could break all kinds of skills. Su Huani died with some grievances. The space in the catacombs was too small. It was a tragedy that a weak practitioner like him couldn't keep a distance from Su Li. Of course, even in a spacious place, Su Huani still couldn't escape death. The ending was the same. It was just a matter of time. If I used Suishing, can I defeat a practitioner in Huashan realm? Su Li couldn't help thinking. The biggest obstacle in front of her was cultivation. If a practitioner in Huashan realm could no longer threaten her, everything would be solved. Well, it's not suitable to fight tonight. Dispersing the thought, Su Li raised her head and looked at Su Huanji, who was looking at her with vigilance not far away. She said lightly, "Answer my question." Su Huanji looked bitter. "Senior, since you already have the answer, why ask again?" Su Li's eyes flickered. "I want to hear it from your Su family." Su Huanji sighed. "If I tell you, can you spare my life?" "Yes." Su Li's answer was very simple, which made Su Huanji suspicious. But he had no other choice. Answering the question was the only chance to survive. How could he not seize it? Yes, the precious animal is Su Li, the holy girl of Yushu's sect. Su Li looked at him quietly and asked again, "Why do you call her precious animal?" "That's because," Su Huanji hesitated for a while, and finally gritted his teeth and confessed, "Su Li's flesh and blood have the effect of enhancing luck. When we were young, we all cut off a piece of her flesh and blood. Then, we had many adventures and our cultivation soared. So that the 5 of us all reached the middle stage of Yuanying realm in just 2,000 years. Who are the 5 of the Su family? What about their strength?" A smile appeared on Su Li's face, which made Su Huanji feel cold in his heart. He didn't dare to think more and quickly replied, "One has been killed by you. The rest are Su Huanli, Su Huanwen, Su Huanwu and me. The 5 of us are the direct descendants of the Su family. Among them, Su Huanli is the youngest and the 5th, but he is the strongest. He is in the half-step of Huashan realm. Su Huanwen and Su Huanwu are a pair of twins. Their cultivation is in the late stage of Yuanying realm and they have practiced the secret skill of one mind." A moment ago, Su Huanji was still indignant about Su Huani's betrayal. But now, he revealed the details of the other 3 like pouring beans in a bucket. Su Li looked at Su Huanji, who was still talking, and sighed, "So your Su family is really boring." Su Huanji held his breath and said with a little panic, "Senior, who are you?" If you have grudges with my Su family, why do you blame me, a junior? I can leave the Su family in the future. Please forgive me. You swallowed my flesh and blood, and you want me to forgive you? Su Li suddenly interrupted him. Su Huanji was stunned and then his face changed dramatically. Su, whoosh. The precious flying sword flew over his head and neatly cut Su Huanji into two halves. His Yuanying was also dismembered. Here comes the retribution. Su Huanli, I will wait for you down there, ha ha ha. Su Huanji's last words shook in the nothingness, and then his body was separated and turned into a pool of dead flesh. Finally, it's quiet. Su Li murmured softly and patted the nightmare on her shoulder to let it swallow the two bodies and lick the blood clean. Then she walked slowly to the Tianyu lotus pond. Black Lotus Ring appeared quietly. Looking at the nightmare who was still licking the ground, his teeth were chattering, the first move of Tsueshing, and the power is converged to the extreme and the power is concentrated in one point. This girl's physical body has skyrocketed, but she can still completely control her own power. If she understands the sword intent. Black Lotus shook his head and didn't dare to think about it. He sighed, her resentment is so deep. Tianyu Lotus. Walking to the pond, Su Li's eyes were bright. Black Lotus, take away the pond. Black Lotus was tempted. He immediately released a force to take the whole pond and the underground soil into the ring. He didn't forget to mutter, how do you know that I have a space to store living things? If not, how did you take me out of the reincarnation mirror? Su Li's words made Black Lotus speechless. With a flash of light in her hand, the cloak reappeared. It's time to go. There is no need to confront the Grand Elder of the Su family now. The quiet night was suddenly broken by a roar. Bastard, damn it! Boom! The ground shook violently. Su Yuanhai had been waiting for Su Li and didn't meditate. He was slightly shocked when he heard the roar. Chapter 421. Well, it's not a secret. Tianyu Lotus is mine. While refining the Tsang Lei's cave, Su Li explained, I got two at that time, but I was targeted by the Su family, who threatened me with the safety of the master. After I escorted the master back to the sect, I went straight to the Su family. Although the Su family had the big tactical matrix for the protection of the sect, the one that bloomed was destroyed by me. This one was a seedling 1,000 years ago. It seemed that the Su family had spent a lot of effort on it to make it bloom in just 1,000 years. More than a lot. Black Lotus heard the riot outside and sighed, the spiritual power needed for Tianyu Lotus to bloom is no less than that needed for you to break through the 18th hurdle of Lianqi realm. The Grand Elder of the Su family must be mad because of you. Su Li held her chin, so, I didn't lose anything. Although she got two in her previous life, the one that bloomed only had 4 petals and was not very effective. She couldn't cultivate the remaining seedling with her ability at that time. Of course not. Black Lotus rolled his eyes. The Su family is the one who has lost both their children and their soldiers. Did this girl forget that in addition to Tianyu Lotus, the 2 lineal disciples who were expected to reach Huashan realm were also killed by her? The lifespan of practitioners in Jindan realm was 4,999 years. A practitioner in Yuanying realm who was just over 2,000 years old was really young. Before dawn the next day, Su Yuanhai was called away by the head branch. He didn't come back with a sullen face until the internal selection contest of the Su family was about to begin. Su Li and the other 2 had been waiting at the gate of the yard. Su Yuanhai's eyes flashed when he saw them. He said in a low voice, get ready and follow me to the contest. Whoever loses will get half of the cultivation resources. Su Fengchun and Su Meng looked bitter and said yes helplessly. Su Yuanhai snorted coldly and led everyone to the contest field. Meanwhile, he secretly transmitted the sound to Su Li, Master, you have a good foresight. The old ancestor really suspected us. But he couldn't vent his anger on us after checking our universe rings. Su Li nodded imperceptibly and didn't say anything. Seeing this, Su Yuanhai didn't delay any longer and quickened his pace. A moment later, he led the three into the gate of the martial arts practice field. As soon as she entered the door, Su Li saw that 6 of the 7 seats on the sidelines were occupied. They were the last to arrive. "You're finally here." "It was these 2 brats who came up with this rotten idea." Someone snorted coldly. Dozens of people in the field looked at them at the same time. 10% of them were looking at Su Li, and the other 90% were looking at Su Fengchun and Su Meng. Su Fengchun and Su Yuanhai had never experienced such a battle. Their faces were pale. If it weren't for Su Yuanhai, they would have knelt down long ago. Seeing this, Su Yuanhai pulled a long face and couldn't help but curse in a low voice, "What a disgrace. Come with me to the table." "Oh. Yes. Yes." Like waking up from a dream, Su Fengchun and Su Yuanhai blushed and hid behind Su Yuanhai dejectedly. They came to the last seat and sat down. From the beginning to the end, Su Li's expression didn't change, as if she was living in her own world. The leader of the second branch was a female practitioner in a blue gauze dress. She had a pretty face and looked no more than 30 years old. Seeing this scene, she couldn't help but chuckle. They can't even bear the stare. It's not surprising that they would do such a stupid thing because their state of mind is too poor. But Su Jojo has a firm state of mind. She is a promising talent. No wonder Su Yuanhai abandoned his sectarian prejudice and insisted on taking her to the tea party for immortals. Speaking of this, a steward of the main branch beside her couldn't help but remind, "Head of the second branch, the head of the family is angry. Don't let him hear you." "So what?" Hearing this, the woman smiled carelessly, but withdrew her gaze. Sitting next to Su Yuanhai, Su Li sensed that the stare disappeared. She looked up and inadvertently saw the female practitioner in blue. She looked no more than 30 years old, but her pneuma was far beyond Su Yuanhai's. She had reached the late stage of Yuanying realm, or even, the peak. Seeing this, Su Yuanhai transmitted the sound consciously. Su Daiyin is a hidden genius of the second branch of the Su family. She is no more than 1,500 years old, but her cultivation is unfathomable. It is said that she is preparing for Huashan realm. Didn't she go to the reincarnation mirror 1,000 years ago? Su Li asked. Su Yuanhai replied helplessly, "At that time, not every genius participated in it. Su Daiyin was one of them. I don't know the specific reason." While the two were communicating in private, an ordinary elder of the main branch walked to the giant arena with a radius of hundreds of meters in the middle. His voice resounded through the whole arena through the power of Yuanying realm. "The tea party for immortals is coming. Only the strong can get the biggest chance. If you don't want to fall behind, you have to fight hard. Now, the representative disciples of each branch come up to draw lots to decide the order of the competition." Probably because Tianyu Lotus was stolen, the seat of the head of the main branch was vacant. The usual lengthy speech was gone, leaving only a brief and vague explanation. As soon as he finished his words, one person from each branch stood up, and Su Li also stood up and walked to the field. Seeing this, the rest of the branches felt a little uncomfortable, but if it was the other two, forget it. Su Jojo was better. The elder held the lot pot and stood in the center. Looking at the 14 people who came to the center of the arena, he warned, "Don't cheat with your cultivation. If I find out, you will be disqualified from the tea party immediately." The 14 people agreed and stepped forward in turn. When it was Su Li's turn, Black Lotus Ring appeared quietly and fiddled with the lot pot secretly. "Take it." Su Li took it out decisively and took it out to have a look. Lot number 3. She looked up and saw a young man in the middle stage of Jindan realm also holding lot number 3 in his hand. He stared at the lot in Su Li's hand with a bitter face and sighed. They were the third team put together temporarily by the third branch of Su family. They came here to make up the number. No matter who chose them, they would win for sure. Although the seventh branch of Su family was weak, they couldn't deal with it. Seeing this, the 4 representatives of the last 4 branches couldn't help but show a trace of envy and strong jealousy. What kind of luck did Su Jojo have? How could she draw it? Su Yuanhai was overjoyed and clenched his fists tightly. You deserve to be master. You can still cheat on such an occasion. Yesterday, Su Li specially asked him which team was the weakest. After he told Su Li, she got it today. If it was a coincidence, Su Yuanhai would be the first to not believe it. Holding lot number 3, Su Li stood aside and waited for the drawing to finish, regardless of what others thought. Little Su Li, you are too degrading. You let me do such a shameful thing. If I am found out, won't you and I lose our reputation? A piece of soul stone as hush money. Otherwise, when you become a mighty in the future, I will publicize this matter everywhere. Su Li's expression remained indifferent, but the corner of her eyes twitched slightly. Black Lotus was too inflated after he woke up. She had to find time to fix him. Taking a deep breath, Su Li's thought turned into a booming sound and was transmitted into Black Lotus' ring. If you say one more word, no matter how many soul stones you have in the future, I won't leave a piece for you. Swish. All the sounds stopped abruptly, and the awareness sea returned to silence, as if there had never been any sound. Su Li breathed a sigh of relief. It was finally quiet. Except for herself and Black Lotus, no one knew who took the Tianyu Lotus, and it was impossible to suspect her. But, nothing was absolute. If there was an accident, it would be quite difficult for her to escape from the mansion of the head branch, and she would have to expose something. So, the more low-key, the better. The 3rd team of the 3rd branch of Su family was the most suitable candidate. In the space of Black Lotus ring, Black Lotus sat quietly beside the pond of Tianyu Lotus, staring at the slightly withered flower bud in the pond. How could he not know Su Li's thoughts? Since Su Li's rebirth, her combat capability had been restored to the late stage of Yuanying realm in just a few years. It seemed to be very smooth, but in fact, every step she took had to be carefully calculated. Even though the two of them didn't say it out loud, both of them clearly understood that they were unable to act without fear, nor were they able to fight to their heart's content and in the open. Because they couldn't afford the consequences of failure. I can't take risks. But it must be dangerous for you to go to the tea party for immortals. If I can recover a little more soul power, maybe. Black Lotus was worried. In the outside world, Su Li sat calmly in the seat, watching the collision of spiritual power in the arena and the fierce battle expressionlessly. The number 3 battle was arranged at the end by drawing lots, which meant that she could go to the arena last. This day was destined to be boring. She just sat there, doing nothing but meditating on the 10th move of Tsuishing occasionally. Su Fengchun and Su Meng also relaxed a lot. They had lost all their faces, so there was nothing to be afraid of. Besides, Su Jojo had drawn the weakest team, so it was a sure thing that they would go to the tea party for immortals. The sun was setting in the blink of an eye. Ah! After a scream, blood spilled on the arena. The young man in the Taoist uniform of the head branch put away his flying sword and turned away without looking at the disciple of the 6th branch whose arms were cut off by him. The face of the 6th branch Su's master was so ugly that it looked like it was about to drip water. In the past, he could take his disciples to see the world even if he didn't get anything from the tea party for immortals. But this time, they drew the seeded team of the head branch. It was impossible for them to advance. Su Yuanhai. The head of the 6th branch suddenly turned his head and stared at Su Yuanhai. At this time, he couldn't help but wonder if it was a deal between the 7th branch and the head branch. Otherwise, how could it be explained that the weakest 7th branch drew an even weaker team? The probability was too small. Su Yuanhai sensed the gaze, turned his head, and grinned. What can I do for you, 6th brother? The head of the 6th branch snorted and turned his head. At this time, the voice of the elder of the head branch finally sounded, the last match, number 3 match. Both sides, come on. Su Yuanhai ignored the head of the 6th branch and glanced at the direction of the 3rd branch. He pondered for a moment and said, Su Meng, you go. Su Meng knew that his cultivation was the weakest among the three, so he was not surprised. He took a deep breath and walked onto the arena. The other side was relieved to see that it was Su Meng who fought. They had no choice but to send a disciple in the middle stage of Jindan realm to fight. All three in the team were in the middle stage of Jindan realm, so the result would be the same. After the two saluted, they kept a distance from each other. After a lukewarm fight, the third branch's body movement was not as good as Su Meng's. In the end, he was defeated because of his serious injury. I didn't expect that Su Meng had some skills. His body movement has reached the nuance realm. Many people recognized Su Meng's body movement realm and were secretly surprised. The contempt in their hearts was reduced a little. Su Meng's body was steaming. He panted for a moment and walked off the arena. He had consumed more than half of his genuine qi. Continuous fights would only hurt him, which was not worth the loss. Feng Chun. Su Yuanhai said in a low voice when he saw Su Meng coming down. Su Fengchun, who had long been impatient, stood up immediately and strode to the center of the arena. The Pneuma of Jindan realm, which was close to completion, was released. The peak of Jindan realm. Many people's hearts sank slightly. After the joke, they realized that the seventh branch was not weak. There were two practitioners in the peak of Jindan realm. Although Su Meng's strength was a little weaker, he was faster and had a strong ability to protect himself. A moment later, the disciple of the third branch also came to the arena. He cupped his hands and said, I am still young and can't defeat you, senior fellow apprentice. But I don't want to admit defeat. Please fight with me. Su Fengchun grinned. Did he take him as a target to sharpen himself? Chapter 422. Boom. The hot pneuma burst out from his body without warning, full of explosive feeling like magma. In the blink of an eye, the disciple of the third branch in front of him was blown out of the arena. Too weak, Su Fengchun shook his head and said in an arrogant tone, Next. Is this the embryonic form of the true meaning of fire? The moment Su Fengchun released his pneuma, everyone, including the elder in charge of the main family, changed their expressions slightly and had the same thought in mind. Su Yuanhai was also stunned. Then, instead of being surprised, his face turned ugly. He could defeat the enemy with one hand, but he had to expose his trump card. Wasn't he an idiot? And in this way, Mr. Su's situation, the peak stage of Jindan realm grasped the embryonic form of the true meaning. His comprehension is good, but his temperament, in the seat of the second branch, Su Daiyin shook her head and couldn't help but look at Su Jouzhou, in the seat of the seventh branch who always looked indifferent. Sometimes the order could reflect a lot of things. Su Fengchun understood the embryonic form of the true meaning, but he was still not as good as Su Jouzhou in Su Yuanhai's mind. So, how strong was Su Jouzhou? At this moment, not only Su Daiyin thought of this, but many people in the field, either overtly or covertly, focused on Su Li. Su Li frowned slightly. Trouble. At this time, Su Fengchun walked down from the arena with a smile on his face. The third opponent admitted defeat directly, which was obviously afraid of him. After 2 wins, his confidence was restored by more than half. Even in the face of Su Yuanhai, he had the confidence. He cupped his hands and said loudly, Fortunately, I didn't fail you and came back victorious. Su Yuanhai's eyelids twitched. Looking at Su Fengchun, who still didn't notice anything wrong, he didn't know what to say for a moment. After holding back for a long time, Su Yuanhai suddenly felt a little tired. He waved his hand weakly and said, You are very good. Sit down. So, Su Fengchun sat down happily. Seeing this, Su Li withdrew her gaze. Even a blind man could hear the whispers around him at this moment. Su Fengchun was not stupid at all. On the contrary, he was very smart. Su Li glanced at the heads of the 4th branch and the 5th branch who were tempted, and transmitted the sound casually, "Don't waste resources on Su Fengchun in the future." Su Yuanhai didn't understand, but when he heard Su Li's words, he replied respectfully, "Yes, sir." With the end of the last round, the Su family's internal selection also came to an end. Other than the unlucky 6th branch Su, the other branches' teams stayed behind. The main branch occupied 2 teams. After the main branch elder announced the results, everyone dispersed. Su Daiyin stayed until the end. She didn't get up and walk out until she saw Su Yuanhai leave with his people. When she walked to the middle of the blood-stained arena, she suddenly stopped and said in a clear voice, "Tonight, we probably won't be able to sleep. You guys should also stay alert, don't fall into someone else's trap." The 3 young practitioners who followed Su Daiyin looked at the owner, who was not much older than them, and responded respectfully. When Su Yuanhai and the other 2 returned to the courtyard, Su Fengchun and Su Meng immediately returned to their rooms with the excuse of recovering their vital energy. Su Li also returned to her room silently and closed the door. "Don't come looking for me. Take care of yourself." Su Yuanhai heard Su Li's transmitted sound before she left. He sighed in his heart and walked back to his room with flagging interest. At this moment, no matter how slow he was, he could sense Su Fengchun and Su Meng's thoughts. Although he took Su Li as his master now, he still controlled the fate of the 7th branch of the Su family. The genius disciple was too narrow-minded, and now he was disloyal. How could he not be disappointed? "You are right. Our Su family does have some problems, and I am also responsible for it. When the next generation reaches the age of cultivation, I must ask you for advice on how to cultivate loyal disciples even if I have to be thick-skinned." Having made up his mind, Su Yuanhai was slightly refreshed. He didn't bother to remind the 2 who were not paying attention to chowing about what would happen at night, and went directly to practice. In the blink of an eye, it was midnight, and the night was the darkest. 3 black shadows suddenly appeared in the quiet courtyard of the guest room. Obviously, the 3 black shadows were not from the same family. They appeared at the same time. They were stunned for a moment and then relaxed. The practitioners of the 7th branch were very familiar with each other, and the visitors were the heads of each branch. Even if they covered their faces, they could be recognized by the outline. The 7th branch, the last one, is visited by the heads of the 3 branches at the same time. If Su Yuanhai knows it, will he feel honored? Su Jinnan, the head of the 6th branch, dispersed the smoke that covered his face. He grinned silently and transmitted sound to the other 2. Su Daiyan's eyelashes trembled, and she transmitted sound in a pleasant way, "I am only interested in Su Jojo. The other 2 are up to you." The head of the 2nd branch is really overbearing. "You want the best one as soon as you speak." Su Linchen, the head of the 4th branch, snorted and transmitted sound, "But I am not interested in an outsider." Su Daiyin smiled and looked at Su Jinnan. The latter smiled. Our 6th branch was completely annihilated. As long as someone represents our 6th branch to attend the tea party for immortals, it doesn't matter who it is. "Thank you for your generosity." Su Daiyin thanked them casually. She took a deep look at Su Yuanhai's room, and then flew into Su Li's room. Su Jinnan and Su Linchen looked at each other. Needless to say, Su Jinnan went to Su Meng's yard, and Su Linchen went to find Su Fengchun. In the dark room, Su Yuanhai saw this scene and snorted in his heart, "They really think highly of me. 3 heads of the 6th branch have come in a row." Su Fengchun had a disloyalty, and he couldn't keep him. As for master, it should be Su Daiyin who should worry about him. "Su Daiyin, don't be stupid. If you make master unhappy, I can't save you." Su Daiyin flew into Su Li's room from the window. The furnishings in the room were simple, and there were no gauze curtains. At a glance, she saw a petite figure meditating in the inner room. This scene immediately reminded Su Daiyin of her youth. She couldn't help but smile. She walked to the chair next to Su Li and sat down, deliberately making a sound. The next moment, Su Li seemed to feel something and suddenly opened her eyes. Seeing that there was one more person in the room, her pupils shrank slightly, but she still forced herself to calm down and said, "Senior, why do you come so late at night?" Su Daiyin had been observing Su Li's reaction. Seeing that Su Li was calm, Su Daiyin praised her in her eyes and said softly, "I am Su Daiyin from the second branch of the Su family." Su Li was slightly stunned, and then immediately stood up and saluted, "Greetings to the head of the second branch. I am not very familiar with the elders of the Su family. Please forgive me." "It doesn't matter." Su Daiyin squinted her beautiful eyes and looked at Su Li with more satisfaction. "Su Jojo, you are talented, and your temperament is even rarer. It is inevitable that you will decline in the seventh branch. Have you ever considered changing to another branch? How about I teach you personally?" Su Li straightened up, and her little face was full of confusion. She hesitated and said, "Can I change? But the head of the Yuanhai branch treats me well. How can I?" Su Daiyin chuckled and said helplessly, "Silly girl, the second branch is not hostile to the seventh branch. If you practice in the second branch, you can advance faster and reach Yuanying realm in a short time. You can even catch up with me soon. In this way, if you show some affection to the seventh branch of the Su family, Su Yuanhai will definitely get more benefits than now. Is that so?" Su Li blushed and scratched her head embarrassedly. "I have to ask the opinion of the head of the Yuanhai branch. If he doesn't care, I will go to you." Su Daiyin couldn't help but support her forehead. But seeing that Su Li valued affection, she liked her even more. No one wanted to raise an ungrateful person. Even if there were ungrateful people in the Su family, and many people were used to it, she didn't want this ungrateful person to fall into her hands. "Okay, I won't force you. Just give me an answer after the tea party for immortals." As Su Daiyin said, she had made up her mind to knock some sense into Su Yuanhai. It would be a pity if Su Yuanhai couldn't cultivate some seedlings. "Head of the second branch, I have a small question. I hope you can solve it for me." Su Li hesitated for a while and suddenly said. Su Daiyin was a little curious that Su Li didn't look like an indecisive person, but she hesitated because of a question. She nodded and promised, "Go ahead. I will tell you as long as it doesn't cross the bottom line." Su Li's eyes dimmed, but she was relieved on the surface. She said directly, "The head of the Yuanhai branch once said that you didn't participate in the samsara 1,000 years ago. Shut up." Su Daiyin's voice suddenly rose and overshadowed Su Li's. The atmosphere in the room became cold instantly. Su Li looked at Su Daiyin, whose expression changed instantly. A hint of understanding flashed in her eyes, but she pretended to be frightened and kept silent with her body tense. After a long time, Su Daiyin took off her veil and let out a sigh. She transmitted the sound, "Su Yuanhai even told you this. He really doesn't treat you as an outsider. But this is a taboo for the Su family, so I can only transmit the sound to you. Each practitioner has his own lucky chance." Holy girl Su's lucky chance was extremely attractive to everyone in those years, including most of the people from the holy sections. "But I am still not used to it. It is said that the natural law is changeable, and the lucky chance depends on the individual. Whether it exists or not depends on fate. But it is obviously the lucky chance of holy girl Su, but she was forced by a group of old demons to share it with everyone. That kind of thing is too despicable." Su Daiyin touched her chest. "There are some things that I can't tell you, but the reason why I didn't go that year is not a secret. I didn't want to go, so I directly practiced in isolation to avoid the deadline of entering the reincarnation mirror. The Su family couldn't do anything to me." Su Li's eyes flickered, but she didn't ask again. Su Daiyin was very sincere. She told her everything except for the specific reason of practicing in isolation. As for the content of the practice, Su Li faintly guessed that it was probably other inheritance to be absorbed, such as Tsang Lei's cave. Otherwise, the old ancestor of the Su family wouldn't be so easy to talk to. Anyway, Su Dian's idea won Su Li's favor. Perhaps, the second branch can be the second branch? Su Li watched Su Dian leave and thought absent-mindedly. An hour later, 2 more black shadows left. Su Li stopped thinking and sighed faintly. How many lucky chances did I lose in the previous life? It's hard to collect them. Chapter 423. After Su Dian left, she probably said hello to the other branches. Su Li didn't see anyone come to her for the rest of the night. Su Fengchun and Su Meng were different. Even though they had agreed to the recruitment of the first 2 houses, the last 4 houses did not have as much influence as the first 3 houses. Although they had greeted them, there were still quite a number of people coming over in the second half of the night. It was almost dawn, and another group of people came. Soon, the faint screams of 2 people passed through the tactical matrix of the room and fell into her ears. Well, the 5th group, the peak of Jindan realm, Su Li murmured and turned to sit down on the rush cushion. It was the best time to practice when the purple air came from the east in the morning. Others might miss it, but she couldn't miss it. An hour later, the purple air dissipated, and the sky was bright. Su Li stretched and pushed the door open. Su Fengchun and Su Meng's door was open. No, even the door was gone. At this time, Su Yuanhai came back from outside. Glancing at Su Li who was waiting at the door, he turned his head and shouted, "The spiritual boat is about to set off for the tea party for immortals." Su Fengchun, Su Meng, what are you waiting for? There was still no movement in the room. Anger flashed through Su Yuanhai's eyebrows, and his voice poured into the 2 rooms with the power of Yuanying realm. I give you 3 breaths. If you don't come out, get out. Su Jouzhou can go to the tea party for immortals alone. As soon as he said this, the 2 people in the room finally walked slowly to the door. Although their clothes were tidy, their faces. Why were there 2 pig heads? When Su Meng and Su Fengchun saw each other's pig faces, they were stunned for a moment. Then, their hearts relaxed, and smiles appeared on their sausage mouths. It was better to have someone to be humiliated with him than to be alone. Su Yuanhai's face darkened when he saw them. At this moment, he almost wanted to leave them and only take Su Li away. But he already knew about Su Jinan and Su Linchen, so he had to take them. Useless things. You are a disgrace. Su Yuanhai cursed. Both Su Fengchun and Su Meng felt wronged. They didn't want to, but the first 2 batches were just practicing. But in the last few batches, they were more ruthless than the last one. They swarmed around him and aimed at his face. They even set up an array formation around the room. He couldn't escape even if he wanted to. They had already become like this in the morning, and their faces had been specially reinforced with a secret technique. The swelling wouldn't go down in a few days, and they would be laughed at along the way with their pig heads. A moment later, Su Yuanhai came to the stone platform where the spiritual boat was parked. The appearance of Su Fengchun and Su Meng caused a roar of laughter. Ha 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 ha, why are there 2 pigs participating in the tea party? Is the threshold for joining the tea party so low now? They've been an eyesore to me for a long time. Which brother beat them up? It feels so good. If it weren't for the 2 owners who vouched for them, these 2 people might have lost an arm or a leg and be bedridden, unable to get up. I also heard that a wise man submits to circumstances. Poor 7th branch head Su. Su Jouzhou seems to be, you can't speak carelessly about the first 3 branches. You might get yourself killed. The man was so scared that his face turned pale and he stopped talking. Standing on the side of the stone platform, Su Yuanhai heard every word of the whispers, and his face became more and more embarrassed. Su Fengchun and Su Meng also heard a lot. After a while, they saw 6th branch head Su Jinan and 4th branch head Su Linchen, who were alone, and felt uncomfortable all over. Seeing this, Su Yuanhai snorted and transmitted the sound to Su Jinan and Lin Chen. After a while, his face eased a little, and he said to the 2, get out if you want. You two are not allowed to return to the 7th branch in the future, and I will order someone to throw out your servants. Su Fengchun and Su Meng froze, and then nodded silently. Without hesitation, they went to the door of the 4th branch and the 6th branch. Seeing this scene, many people felt it was shameless. But because the two owners were present, they couldn't make fun of them. After a while, Su Daiyin arrived with the disciples of the 2nd branch. Seeing this, Su Yuanhai hurriedly walked over with Su Li. Su Daiyin was not surprised to see them. She transmitted the sound with a smile. 7th branch head, what do you think? Su Yuanhai nodded slightly, and then shook his head, transmitting the sound. 2nd branch head, you are right. Zhou's talent should not be buried in my hands. However, the 7th branch of the Su family must obtain the reward of this immortal Dao Tea Party. The 7th branch is really too weak. In the future, I will use the resources from the tea party to train another group of people. Su Daiyin looked at Su Yuanhai meaningfully and pondered in her heart. It seemed that Su Fengchun's betrayal really hurt Su Yuanhai. Did it make him want to abandon the sectarian prejudice and bring in a disciple with another surname? She thought it was very good, but for the head branch, the 7th branch would be more and more unwelcome. 7th branch head, I agree to your request, and I don't lack the reward of the tea party for immortals. Speaking of this, Su Daiyin glanced at Su Li. This girl didn't show her strength, but the tea party for immortals would gather the talents of the whole Zhou region, and there would even be some talents who were invincible among their peers and could fight beyond their levels. She didn't think that Su Zhou would get the reward of the sect, but she obviously couldn't pour cold water on it. Su Yuanhai was already pitiful enough. After pondering for a moment, Su Daiyin raised her eyes and continued to transmit the sound. Not only that, as long as Zhou joins the 2nd branch and performs well, I will also provide some resources to support the 7th branch. Su Yuanhai was overjoyed at once and thanked her repeatedly. This scene was seen by the heads of the last 4 branches, and they all felt uncomfortable. There is always a gain for every loss. Su Yuanhai, this old guy, actually climbed up the tree of Su Daiyin with Su Zhou. Tut, the 2nd branch is second only to the head branch, and its cultivation environment is at least 3 times better than ours. Maybe in 2 years, the 7th branch will no longer be the weakest, and the 6th branch, Su Linqian and others looked at Su Jinnan. Su Jinnan, who had just obtained Su Meng, suddenly became gloomy and didn't speak. After a conversation, Su Yuanhai asked Su Daiyin to take Su Li to the tea party for immortals under Su Li's secret hint, and he left on the pretext of an emergency. Su Daiyin saw that Su Yuanhai was so obedient, so she naturally agreed. She began to think about how to play the emotional card with Su Li during this time. At the same time, people of the 7th branch of Su family who went to the tea party for immortals also came to the stone platform one after another. When everyone arrived, the elder of the Su family opened the tactical matrix and let everyone board the boat. The high-grade spiritual boat made a booming sound and disappeared into the sea of clouds. On the spiritual boat, Su Li and the disciples of the first 3 branches had a separate room because of Su Daiyin's special care. The disciples of the last 4 branches basically had 2 or even 3 rooms. Su Meng came out for a breath with a swollen face. When he glanced at Su Li, who was looking at the sea of clouds outside his room, he couldn't help but feel jealous. Why was he chosen by Su Daiyin of the 2nd branch, while Su Zhou had never made a move from beginning to end? Yes. Su Zhou didn't make a move. Su Meng suddenly thought of the point, and his eyes brightened. Isn't she powerful because of Su Fengchun? If she can't satisfy Su Daiyin after her strength is exposed, maybe Su Daiyin won't want her. Su Li sensed Su Meng's emotional fluctuations in an instant, but she didn't care. She went back to her room and thought quietly. She had planned for the tea party for immortals 2 years ago. Now it had come to this point. Although Su Daiyin was there, it was not a bad thing. Yushu sect, how many traces of me are there after 1,000 years? Mei Ruhan, I heard that you are crazy. I want to see if you are really crazy or pretending to be crazy, master. I hope you have never lied to me. Su Li rubbed the black lotus ring and leaned against the window to watch the sea of clouds churning outside. Her dark eyes flashed with waves that others couldn't understand. Hatred, confusion, and yearning were mixed together, and finally, it was so complicated that she didn't want to think about it anymore. Treasured livestock, this name definitely didn't come out of nowhere. Also, that nonsense about my flesh and blood strengthening luck doesn't sound too real no matter how I listen to it. But the 5 Su brothers really had many fortuitous encounters, and their cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds. Su Li's eyes flashed. Hearing the footsteps of Su Daiyin outside the door, she might know. However, this topic was not as well known as the reincarnation mirror, so she couldn't ask. At least, not now. Soon there was a knock on the door. Su Li opened the door and saw Su Daiyin. She saluted and stepped aside, allowing Su Daiyin to come in. Su Daiyin shook her head and handed out a universe ring. She said with a smile, Su Jojo, this is the Tsuanjin elixir, which can remove the impurities in your Jindan and purify the power of Jindan. If you refine it to a certain extent, it is possible to upgrade the Jindan and reach the standard of the extreme Jindan realm. Although it is unlikely to reach the extreme Jindan realm before the tea party for immortals, if you can refine a round of Jindan realm, your strength will be enhanced a lot. Su Li took the universe ring with gratitude and surprise in her eyes. She said repeatedly, "Thank you, head. I will refine it hard these days." A hint of disappointment flashed through Su Daiyan's eyes, but she didn't show it on her face. She nodded with a smile and left. Su Li closed the door. The expression on her face instantly disappeared, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. "Little girl, you want to test my strength with this little trick? You're too naive." Su Daiyin returned to her room, but her eyes were still fixed on Su Li's room. She frowned slightly and muttered to herself, if she hasn't reached the extreme Jindan realm, how can she surpass Su Fengchun? Has she also comprehended the true meaning? Or does she have other trump cards? Could it be that she saw that I was testing her and tried to confuse me? Su Daiyin rubbed her eyebrows, and the last thought was instantly extinguished by her. Just now, Su Jojo's reaction was too natural. It was completely the joy of seeing something useful. It was impossible for her to deliberately deceive her. How could a child less than 200 years old have so many impure thoughts? If she did, she would not be a talent, but a monster. Thinking of this, Su Daiyin showed a smile on her face. Although Su Jojo had not made a move, how could she miss a 200-year-old practitioner at the peak of Jindan realm? Her eye sorcery would not lie. Chapter 424, Many names. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 425. On the 8th day of March, Yushu sect in Jiuzhou Mountain held a tea party for immortals. All the sects in Jiuzhou region came to congratulate them. For a time, the sky above the mountain was covered with spiritual boats, which was spectacular. When it was 7 in the morning, the bell on the top of the mountain rang, and a door was opened in the tactical matrix for protecting the sect. All the spiritual boats entered the peak where the spiritual boats were parked. The spiritual boat of Su family was naturally in the front, just behind that of Zihan sect. At this moment, all the people of Su family gathered on the deck, waiting to land. Su Daiyin came to the deck and glanced at Su Li, who was standing in the crowd and staring at the pavilions below. She couldn't help but smile and walked over with 3 disciples behind her. "What are you thinking about?" a voice sounded behind her. Su Li looked back and saw Su Daiyin. She glanced at the 3 people behind her and shook her head, "Nothing." Su Daiyin was not annoyed by her obviously perfunctory answer. She called the 3 people behind her to her side and said with a smile, "After the tea party, you will be a member of our second branch. The three of them will be your partners in fighting side by side in the future. Take the opportunity to get to know them. Su Li nodded and said, Su Jojo, from Meng sect. The three people who thought there would be more were stunned. That was it? The disciple recruited by the head of the branch is really mediocre. She comes from a small sect and has a narrow vision. Even if she is talented, what can she do in the future? The gentle young man sighed in his heart, but he didn't show any contempt on the surface. He imitated Su Li's tone and held his fist. Su Xianyun, the first disciple of the second branch. Nice to meet you. The remaining two young men looked at each other and smiled. They imitated Su Xianyun and said, Su Wenbing, the second disciple of the second branch. Su Zheng, the third disciple of the second branch. The attitude of the three people was kind, and Su Li didn't show any displeasure. She responded to them with a few words, and they were familiar with each other. During the conversation, the spiritual boat of Su family had landed. After everyone got off the spiritual boat, an elder in charge of logistics put away the spiritual boat and took many servants to the guest peak to settle down in advance. The rest of the people were led to another guest peak hall by the greeting boy of the sect to sit down. Su Daiyin stepped into the hall and glanced around casually. She saw many square tables in the hall, and people of Zihan's sect were already resting inside. As for the elders of Yushu's sect, she didn't see them. Seniors of the Su family, please feel free to enjoy some refreshments. Please wait for a moment, everyone will be here soon. The attendant bowed and left the palace. Everyone from the Su family took their seats, occupying 7 or 8 tables. Head, Su said with hesitation. Yuf Hall, Su Xianyun said. Of Yushu of. The arrangement of Yushu's sect was very thoughtful. In the past years, the teams that came to the tea party for immortals, no matter they were from sects or families, had 3 disciples and an elder who led the team. But this time, they temporarily added Su Li, and the team became 5 people. 4 positions were a bit awkward. Sect, and he, and of D sect of sect, Su. Sect, Su sect, and was. And. Of Su of T. Sect, Su sect, and. Su. Of sect. Of. Su of Su. Li sect Su sect, of Su. Of Su Li of sect, and. Su Daiyin shook her head and smiled. Every talent was a little arrogant. Su Jojo was too young, and it was normal that she was not calm enough. She should take this opportunity to practice. The sense of belonging needed to be cultivated slowly. On the other side, Su Li casually drank 2 cups of spiritual wine specially made by Yushu's sect, and a sense of familiarity surged up. She narrowed her eyes slightly and calculated in her heart, Su Daiyin not only practices fast, but also has the means to train disciples. It is a pity to control such a person's soul. How can I make her work for me? Su Li felt a little embarrassed. At this time, the light suddenly dimmed. Su Li looked up and saw the sunny young man sitting opposite her. Then, another cold young man also sat down expressionlessly. The two were obviously enemies, but they acted together. Su Li held her chin and looked at the sunny young man. Su Jojo, what a coincidence. The sunny young man smiled and showed his canine teeth. I have a big deal. Do you want to do it? Su Daiyin frowned when she saw the 2 people sitting next to Su Li. She was about to get up and have a look, but a sound came into her ears suddenly. Heads of the branches of Su family, please come to the back hall of the hall immediately to discuss the immortal tea plant. Why at this time? Su Daiyin frowned. Seeing that the heads of other branches and the elders of Zihan's sect were ready to leave, she didn't want to delay. She got up and left the hall with everyone. As soon as the elders left, the younger generation immediately chatted much more easily. The hall became lively, and the conversation at the corner table was also drowned in it. Su Li took a sip of the wine unhurriedly and asked with interest, "Why do you find me?" "Because you are powerful." The sunny young man gave a thumbs up and praised without hesitation. Su Li tilted her head and looked at the sunny young man. After a moment of silence, she suddenly asked, "Have you seen me fight?" The sunny young man shook his head. "Then do you know what my strength is?" The sunny young man shook his head again. "Then I don't understand." Su Li laughed. "Maybe my strength is not even comparable to the ordinary people at the peak of Jindan realm. Don't you think it's a loss to talk business with me? This blockhead said that you are hiding your strength." The sunny young man pointed to the stone-faced young man and said with a smile, "Besides, I also think you are a good candidate. It's purely based on my personal feeling." "Oh." Su Li raised her eyebrows. "Business? Tell me about it." Seeing that she was interested, the sunny young man immediately said with great interest, "Do you know the rules of the tea ceremony? We guarantee that you will get a place for tea tasting, and we can even provide you with some cultivation resources in the next few years. In exchange, you will go to a place with us for an adventure a few years later, and we will share the treasures we get. How about it?" "Where?" Su Li didn't answer but asked back. The sunny young man was not annoyed and said with a smile, "Of course it is a good place. There are treasures everywhere. Take the Tsuanjin elixir for example. Not all inherited disciples of Yushu's sect can afford it. But in that place, the Tsuanjin elixir is rubbish. It is a waste that no one will pick up if thrown on the ground. There are many magical treasures there. Maybe we will all reach Huashan realm after a trip there." The sunny young man became more and more excited as he spoke. His voice was so loud that other tables could hear him. Some people couldn't help laughing. "Puff! He hasn't even reached Yuanying realm. Is he still in Huashan realm?" Some people are dreaming during the day, and they are the outstanding cultivators who come to attend the tea party. Tut tut, the sunny young man suddenly turned back and glanced at the young practitioners who laughed at him with a smile. He didn't turn back until those practitioners were scared. He wanted to get close to Su Li as he did to the stern young man last time, but he was blocked by a chopstick, and his nose was almost cut in half. Hiss, the sunny young man shrank back in pain and covered his nose. He said with hatred, "My face. Su Jojo, you have to compensate for my nose. If you don't go with me this time, I won't let you go." The cold eyes of the stern young man flashed. What a sharp pneuma. It seems to be emitted by pneuma. Su Li poured herself the 23rd cup of wine. She picked up the cup and looked at the sunny young man. Her eyes were shining. "Tell me what kind of place the Tiannan Chaos Zone is, and I don't mind going with you." Hearing this, the sunny young man immediately grinned with a proud face. He patted the shoulder of the stern young man and stretched out his other hand. "Blockhead, did you hear that? I won the bet this time. Give it to me." The stern young man frowned and handed out a celestial stone impatiently. Then he stared at Su Jojo and asked seriously, "Why can you hear it?" He must figure out this problem. In addition to cultivation, he also practiced tactical matrices, and the level was not low. He set up the soundproof matrix casually. Su Yang said it when he came back, but he didn't believe it. So, he tested her this time. Now, he had to believe it. Although Su Yang was unreliable and even had a grudge against him, he wouldn't talk nonsense about the Tiannan Chaos Zone. Su Li sighed. She was a little annoyed. There were many things to do in Yushu sect, and she had no time to waste on this meaningless conversation. The Tiannan Chaos Zone had nothing to do with her. She just wanted to take every step according to the plan. Seeing that Su Li had no interest in talking, the stern young man didn't give up. After hesitating for a moment, he set up another soundproof matrix again, and said in a low tone slowly. "My name is Su Mu. I am not from the Jojo region, but a pawn of the holy sects in the Su family. So is Su Yang." Su Mu's first words made Su Yang lose his smile. His face instantly became gloomy. He gritted his teeth and said, "Are you crazy? How can you say such things?" Su Li was interested. "Go on." Su Yang's eyes flashed, and he was about to take action. But at this moment, he suddenly felt that the surrounding space was squeezed, and he couldn't move or even speak. Coercion. This. What kind of monster did we provoke? Su Yang's pupils were full of fear. He wanted to stop Su Mu, but he could only watch the blockhead continue to speak. The Tiannan Chaos Zone originated from the bloody accident of Holy Spirit. After the reincarnation mirror was broken, the space vibrated, and a passage to an unknown area was opened in the neighboring Dafu region. Except for some dangerous places, almost all the relics in Qingshui Circle had been explored by the predecessors. It was extremely difficult for future generations to harvest them. The sudden opening of the passage was immediately regarded by everyone as a new amazing chance after the reincarnation mirror. In the first wave, half of the practitioners in Yuanying realm and the mighty practitioners in Huashan realm swarmed in. Speaking of this, the cold young man's tone became colder, but on the other side of the passage, it was not a secret realm at all, but a world more powerful than Qingshui Circle. Qingshui Circle sacrificed 3,000 mighty practitioners in Huashan realm and dozens of old monsters in nature's test to barely seal the passage. The price was, all the creatures in the Dafu region were killed, and no one survived. So, the Dafu region became the Tiannan Chaos Zone. Of course, the opposite world also suffered a heavy loss, and many treasures were left in the space of the passage. After the passage was sealed for nearly 800 years, it began to vibrate again, and unstable portals began to appear to tolerate entry. As long as one was lucky enough, he could go in and pick up the treasures, and the road of cultivation would be smooth from then on. Su Yang, that's what you wanted. After saying this in one breath, Su Mu exhaled and said in a relaxed tone, "In exchange, can you tell me why the sound-insulating tactical matrix didn't work?" Su Li rubbed her chin and pondered for a moment. Then she smiled. "The reason is very simple. My realm of tactical matrix is higher than yours. Are you satisfied with this answer?" Su Mu was stunned. He had thought of this, but his realm of tactical matrix had reached the 8th grade, and he was a 9th grade grandmaster on the internet. Su Jojo was younger than him, but she was a 9th grade grandmaster of tactical matrix? Su Mu looked doubtful. Su Li took a sip of wine and said softly, "I don't need to prove anything to you. By the way, which holy sect are you a pawn? Did anyone from that sect enter the reincarnation mirror?" Su Mu was silent for a while, and then he continued, "Tianhe sect in the Tianhe region. The young lord was Fang Yuan, the second on the Tianjiao list." Su Yang's face turned red, and he felt more and more breathless. His pneuma and blood were suppressed to the point of bursting. Hearing Su Mu and Su Li chatting happily, he felt bitterness in his mouth, almost in his heart. This blockhead usually couldn't say a word for a long time. Why did he say everything now? Su Jojo was an old monster. After that, she would definitely kill him. Fang Yuan, Su Li muttered to herself, chuckled, and let go of the suppression on Su Yang. Since he was a pawn of the holy sect where that person was, he was still useful, so she had to keep him. Chapter 426. Take the carrier rune and contact me when Fang Yuan goes to the Tiannan Chaos Zone. Su Li handed over a jade rune made of celestial stone, and Su Mu took it with a blank look. Why did it suddenly involve the young lord? Besides, why did Su Jojo think that he would be obedient? I want one, too. Su Yang suddenly reached out and looked at Su Li with hope in his eyes. Su Li looked at the well-behaved Su Yang, smiled thoughtfully, and threw out a jade rune. She was not afraid that they would betray her. They were just two pawns who had been exiled by holy sects for a long time and were not valued at all. Even if they took her carrier rune back to report, they couldn't tell the reason, and no one would believe them. Su Mu saw Su Yang got the carrier rune as if he got a treasure, and he was even more confused. Clang! 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 At this time, the big bell of Yushu's sect rang 3 times, and then a woman's cold voice passed through the big tactical matrix of the sect and spread to all the reception halls. I'm Fang Ling, the holy girl of Yushu's sect. Talents of all sects, please go to the T-Peak to meet. Su Li's eyes flickered. Seeing Su Xianyun and others going out, she also got up and followed them. As soon as she left, Su Yang immediately breathed a sigh of relief, and fear flashed in his eyes. He looked up and saw Su Mu looking at him with a strange face, and said angrily, "What are you looking at?" Blockhead. Su Jojo is an old monster. Don't you know that? You actually told her everything. If she hadn't been interested in Fang Yuan, we would have been dead long ago. Su Mu glanced at Su Yang and turned to go out. Su Yang was anxious and followed him, gritting his teeth. You don't believe me? You've lied to me many times. If Su Jojo is an old monster, why do you take her carrier rune? If I don't take it, it means I'm useless. Who knows if she will kill me? Okay, don't disturb my mood. Su Mu quickened his pace, leaving Su Yang with a bitter face. He muttered to himself, I only lied to you once, and this time it's true. Su Xianyun and the other 2 slowed down a little when they saw Su Li following them. When Su Li approached, Su Xianyun cupped his fists and said, I'm really sorry. The 3 of us didn't mean to exclude you. It's just that the rules of this year's tea party are different, and we need to discuss it properly. Su Li shook her head, it doesn't matter. We practitioners don't need to care about these trivial matters. What's different about this year's tea party? Can senior brother explain? Junior sister, don't worry. That's the best. Su Xianyun breathed a sigh of relief. His master's task was finally completed. However, Su Jojo didn't seem to need a way to ease her mood as his master said. She really didn't care. This state of mind was hard to come by. Su Xianyun thought and smiled. As for the rules of the tea party, I heard it from my master. Let's talk about it on the way. All right. Su Li smiled and walked side by side with the 3 of them. Su Yang, who was not far behind, saw this scene and had goosebumps all over his body. The movement was too natural. If it hadn't been before, he wouldn't have found out Su Li's secret anyway. What did this old monster want to do by sneaking into the tea party? In the past tea parties for immortals, the winning disciples could enter the core of the tea plant and obtain the leaves by chance. Then, they could hand them over to Yushu's sect to be processed and obtain the tea leaves. The tea leaves could permanently improve one's comprehension, but not this year. Su Xianyun looked regretful. The former holy girl of Yushu's sect went crazy. She ate most of the leaves and drank the spirit of the tea plant. She fought fiercely and directly collapsed the core of the tea plant. So, it's a problem whether we can get the leaves this year. Su Li blinked and didn't speak. Was Mei Ruhen really crazy? Fighting with the tea plant for no reason seemed to have no other effect except to ruin the tea party for immortals. Su Xianyun was worried, and Su Zhen couldn't help but speak. Master said not to worry. Yushu's sect should have kept a lot of tea leaves in storage in the past years, but they couldn't enter the core of the tea plant and obtain the leaves by personal luck. So, the method of determining the quota must have changed. Holy Girl Fang must have something to do with this matter. I think so too. Su Wenbing, who was quite unsociable, answered in a muffled voice. Not long after the 4 of them walked, the tea peak was in sight. They could see the shadow of the green tea plant reflected in the nothingness from a distance. Their sight was distorted, as if they were not in the same world. Tea plant for immortals. Su Li narrowed her eyes. She had also hosted the tea party for immortals. This tree's spirit was left by the founding ancestor of Yushu's sect. No one knew what agreement it made with the ancestor, and it had always stayed in Yushu's sect. It changed its leaves every 500 years, and the replaced leaves could be fried and used for the disciples of Yushu's sect to improve their comprehension. Many years later, Yushu's sect declined, and the rest of the 25 sects were jealous. After a discussion, they joined forces to force Yushu's sect. The head of Yushu's sect had no choice but to compromise. So, today's tea party for immortals was held once every 500 years. The law of the jungle was the eternal truth. Su Li's lips curled up. She had walked through the moon-shaped passage between the two peaks and stepped on the tea peak. From afar, she saw a tall woman in a pure white gauze dress standing alone on the high platform of the huge square that could accommodate 100,000 people. Her face was cold. It's really like her. In the square, disciples of all forces gathered. Among the people of Leiyuan's sect, Fan Zisong looked up at the high platform and faintly heard a sigh from the jade token on his chest. Fan Zisong's eyes narrowed. Fang Ling was very like the holy girl Su of the last generation. The jade token had been with him for many years. Even if the senior didn't say it, he faintly guessed that this thing had something to do with the bloody accident of Holy Spirit. Even the practice method he secretly practiced was very likely to be from the reincarnation mirror. What kind of person is Su Li? Fan Zisong had always been curious. Every time he thought of this name, he would think of his junior sister apprentice. I don't know how my junior sister apprentice is doing in NI sect. The Grand Elder of NI sect should be the mysterious female senior if I am not mistaken. Fan Zisong's thoughts drifted away, and he sat down with the people in the sect in the square. In the seat closest to the high platform, Su Li also sat down and stared at the woman in white on the high platform. Fang Ling sensed the gaze and glanced at Su Li's immature face. She withdrew her gaze without stopping. Facing the people of the 25 sects, she calmly said, "Today, I, Fang Ling, will host the tea party on behalf of Yushu's sect. If I am rude, please forgive me." Due to the sealing of the core of the tea plant, the rules of this year's tea party for immortals have been slightly changed after discussion. The selection contest and the quota for entering the core are cancelled. It will be a test. There are 3 levels in the test, and you can get merits in each level. Yushu's sect will offer 50 top-grade tea leaves as a reward. Only the top 50 young talents in the 3 tests can get them. Fang Ling's eyes turned cold when she said this. Now, the first level begins. Boom! A giant rune of tactical matrix suddenly appeared on the high platform of the square, and a pillar of light lit up to the sky in everyone's horror. It's a teleportation matrix. It was just a small tea party. Was it necessary to make such a scene? Su Li sensed that the power drawn by the tactical matrix on the ground was accumulating, and she couldn't help thinking. Su Xianyun and others were not so calm. They all looked pale and uneasy. Why didn't the master mention the teleportation matrix to them? Not far away, Su Yang's face changed wildly, and he cursed, "Damn it, how could Yushu's sect set up a giant teleportation matrix? I know that nothing good will happen before that place is opened." Fang Ling's face froze when she heard the voice. She wanted to see Su Yang's face through the pillar of light, but her sight was interrupted by a light hum. Her face turned pale. When she was about to look again, the teleportation matrix had been launched. After a violent fluctuation of spiritual power, everyone disappeared. That voice. Fang Ling frowned slightly. "Ling," a gentle woman's voice came. Fang Ling immediately flew down from the high platform and saluted, "Master, it's done." "Well." The kind-looking woman smiled, "I think you are a little absent-minded." "What's wrong?" "Nothing. I just think it's too cruel to do this." Fang Ling changed the topic. For some reason, she subconsciously hid the snort. The woman's smile remained unchanged. She looked at the distant cloud-shrouded mountain peak and said faintly, "There is a price to pay for some things. The cause sown in the past and the effect today need to be borne by the 25 sects together." Fang Ling's beautiful eyes showed that she couldn't bear it. They should be the ones to atone for their sins. Why did they send a group of young people less than 1,000 years old to die? You don't have to feel burdened. They are just some fish that escaped the net. The passage is not stable enough, and those whose bone age is over 1,000 can't get in. That is a fair battlefield. They should experience it. Only by walking out of there can they be the real pillars in the future. Otherwise, Qingshui's circle will be in danger. Fang Ling was silent. Fair? Would there be fairness on the battlefield? Well, don't think too much. Go and see your senior sister apprentice. She is going to Luo sect soon. She is not in a good mood these days. Fang Ling saluted and turned into a flowing light, flying to a cave full of cold breath. The two disciples guarding in front of the door saw her and bowed their heads to salute. Holy girl! Holy girl! Fang Ling walked in expressionlessly. The cold breath came to her face. The light in the cave was extremely dark, and the top was covered with icicles, like a blade stabbing on it, reflecting the cold light. Walking along the ice to the deepest part, Fang Ling opened the lapis lazuli gate hundreds of meters thick in front of her with ease and walked in. The temperature dropped again. Even the water vapor exhaled would instantly turn into broken ice and fall to the ground. Fang Ling had to open the protective yuan shield to barely walk to the front of the thick chains. In the chains, a woman with a haggard face and white hair sat stiffly, as if she had been frozen into an ice sculpture, motionless. Mei Ruhan, I come to see you. Fang Ling's voice trembled. It was hard to tell whether it was because of the ice or heartache. Hearing the name, the ice sculpture-like woman had a slight reaction. She raised her head slightly, revealing a pair of deep-set eyes through her white hair. She didn't speak. Fang Ling took a deep breath, squatted down, and transmitted the sound, Brother Luo is ready. He will save you next month. Hearing this, Mei Ruhan finally had a little reaction. Her dry lips moved. I won't go. Chapter 427. After a brief sense of weightlessness, Su Li opened her eyes and saw a vast land full of ruins under a cloudy sky. The atmosphere of decay lingered for a long time. No one had been here for at least hundreds of years. But when Su Li sniffed, she could still vaguely smell a trace of blood. Battlefield, Su Li narrowed her eyes and subconsciously thought of the passage to the Tiannan Chaos Zone that Su Mu mentioned. What is this? Su Xianyun, who was not far away, came to his senses and stepped on a brand new jade slip. He couldn't help but reach out curiously. Su Zheng and Su Wenbing immediately came over. Su Li glanced at the three of them and turned her eyes. There were more than a dozen people who stood close to them at that time and were transmitted here. Is this the first test? Su Zheng couldn't help but exclaim in a low voice, which attracted the attention of others. Su Li also came over when she heard the words. Su Xianyun nodded to her and handed over the jade slip. She scanned it with her psychic awareness and saw the contents of the jade slip at a glance. This space is the remains of the battlefield of the righteous path and the evil path. There are still some remnants of the evil practitioners. This is the first test. The space will close in 3 days. At that time, everyone will be squeezed out, and the merits will be determined by the number of enemies killed. And all the magic treasures obtained in this space will belong to the user. The means of the evil practitioners are strange and cunning. Don't take it lightly and lose your life for no reason. The jade slip was densely packed with small words. After the brief explanation, it was some records of the means of the evil practitioners and the proof of killing demons. Su Li glanced at it and kept it in mind. She returned the jade slip to Su Xianyun and pondered. So, this was not Yushu's sect. It's really strange that the plan can't keep up with the changes. Su Li pondered for a moment and secretly sent 2 messages. She didn't know if Su Mu and Su Yang could receive them. The merits will be determined by killing. Su Zheng looked at it and said excitedly, killing demons is the duty of our generation of practitioners. This tea party is much more interesting than before. The evil practitioners happened in the ancient times, right? It's said that many of them were left. Are they still alive these days? Su Li turned around and saw some people chatting happily in groups of 3 or 4, as if they were on an outing. She withdrew her gaze and walked alone to a ruined wall. She picked up a piece of rotten cloth that had been pressed under a stone for who knew how many years. A trace of unwillingness and resentment still lingered on it. Spiritual armor made of spiritual silk. It's just yellowed and hasn't decayed. It should be around 500 to 1,000 years old. Is this really the passage that Su Mu mentioned? Su Li's eyes flickered, and speculation emerged in her mind again. Suddenly, a mournful howl, accompanied by the sound of an object rolling down, broke the silence. Su Li suddenly got up and looked back. At the moment when she turned around, in the blink of an eye, the gravel under the ruined wall turned into sharp arrows and shot to Su Li's neck. When the sharp breath was about to cut her throat, Su Li suddenly moved to the left, so that the gravel missed and hit the wall and shattered. Enemy. Su Xianyun and the other two turned their heads and saw a headless corpse falling down. Blood stained the ground that had been silent for a long time. While their attention was attracted, several young practitioners who were alone fell down with blood spurting from their throats. They were about to die. Before Yuanying realm, the physical weakness of practitioners was the same as that of mortals. If they were hit in the vital parts, they would be powerless. Who killed them? Everyone's nerves were tense, and they were vigilant around. Where is Su Jouzhou? Su Xianyun looked around and suddenly thought of Su Li. He looked in the direction where Su Li had gone before. When he saw Su Li still standing there alive, he couldn't help but feel relieved. He walked over with others and said solemnly, "Junior sister apprentice, this place is very strange. You must follow us closely and don't act alone." Su Li nodded and walked to Su Xianyun without saying anything. Su Zheng wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. But when he saw Su Xianyun's determined look, he didn't say anything in the end. He secretly transmitted the sound, "Senior fellow apprentice, those people died without knowing how they died. We are also in danger. It's not good to take a burden with us. Su Jouzhou belongs to our second branch. As the first disciple, I should protect her. Don't say such words again in the future." Su Xianyun warned Su Jing secretly. While being vigilant around, he said in a deep voice, "This place is very strange. We shouldn't stay here for a long time. Let's leave first." "Okay." Su Li responded and followed Su Xianyun. Su Zheng sighed and followed them. Su Wenbing, who was walking at the end, glanced at the 3 traces of crushed gravel on the wall. Confusion flashed in his eyes, but he had no time to think about it. He turned around and quickly followed them. Seeing Su Xianyun and others leaving, the other teams couldn't sit still. Although they didn't know where to go, it was better than staying here and being attacked. Damn it! I knew that those cunning bastards were all up to no good. Su Yang angrily punched the corpse on the ground into pieces. Even if this is not the main battlefield of the Tiannan Chaos Zone, it is definitely not far away. Su Mu's face was cold, but he quickly searched the corpse. Then he stood up and said, "Let's find Su Jouzhou." Su Yang's eyes brightened and he laughed. "Yes, it is absolutely the safest to stay with that old monster." "You don't believe it, do you? Why do you want to find her?" Su Mu glanced at him and went away in a flash. Su Yang was stunned. Looking at the corpse on the ground without any clothes, he suddenly became furious. "My trophies. You blockhead, stop right there." At the same time, in the wilderness where Su Li landed. After everyone left, the space fluctuated a few times. 3 figures emerged. Their thoughts were intertwined and they began to talk. This group of people was unprepared. They are all newcomers of alien clans. I killed 5. Unfortunately, there were too many people, and I didn't have time to collect their treasures. I missed one. I don't know whether it was an accident or the woman hid her strength. Later, his companions came, and I couldn't kill them again. Continue to hunt. After the leading black shadow finished speaking, the three figures dimmed again and finally disappeared. Half a day passed in a flash. Su Xianyun led others to search the relics and got a lot of strange things. Just when they felt that the trip was worthwhile, they finally met the first wave of enemies. In the huge gate of the relic, two groups of people met at the corner and were all stunned. Then, before Su Xianyun and others could ask questions, they saw the four people on the opposite side rushed over without saying a word, and murmured something. Evil practitioners. Su Zheng and his companion were still in a daze, but Su Xianyun reacted quickly. With a stern look, he shouted, "Kill!" In an instant, the two sides fought fiercely without any reason. Clang! As soon as the weapons of the two sides collided, the huge force passed to Su Xianyun, and he immediately changed his expression. What a great force! Physical practitioners. Su Zheng and others also felt numb in their arms and stepped back. The enemies tested their strength and grinned hideously. Only the practitioner who collided with Su Li was in a daze. The force transmitted from the collision just now was so strong that half of his body was numb. How could the female practitioner I chose be the most powerful among them? The man thought with grievance, and the other three laughed wildly. Their pneuma and blood burst out, and they rushed forward. Second brother, are you soft-hearted by the female practitioner? Ha ha ha. Su Xianyun immediately shouted, retreat. Keep a distance and fight with the flying swords. We are no match for you in close combat. Su Zheng and his companion immediately did so, and Su Li also retreated, which made the opponent confused. Why did you retreat? I am obviously weak in close combat. Su Li glanced at Su Xianyun and others, and there was no danger for the time being. Then, she continued to pretend to fight with the enemy in front of her. Seeing this, the opponent finally knew that Su Li did not intend to expose her strength. While feeling lucky, he became more indignant. Instantly, he stimulated all the pneuma and blood in his body and turned into a bloody figure to attack crazily. Hearing the voice, Su Xianyun couldn't help but worry about Su Li's safety. But he could not separate himself now, and could only hope that Su Li could hold on for a while. The 8 people fought fiercely in the huge ruins, divided into 4 battlefields, and the sand and stones kept flying. While Su Li dealt with the opponent's attack casually, she observed carefully. The way of pneuma and blood eruption seems to be somewhat similar to the pneuma and blood school, but it is more primitive and rough, not as exquisite as the swordsmanship of the school. Where did this group of people come from? Is it possible that the world Su Yang mentioned mainly practiced pneuma and blood? Su Li couldn't help but think. At this time, the opponent persevered in punching her again. She still hit it casually, but this time the opponent failed to block it. With a boom, he shot into the ruins like a cannonball. Su Li was slightly stunned. She didn't use her strength, but the opponent's pneuma and blood declined? There was no such thing as decline in the pneuma and blood school. She floated to the ground and waved away the stones covering the opponent, but she was speechless when she saw that the opponent's pneuma and blood were exhausted and died. The first enemy she met was actually exhausted to death. Ah! Just as she collected the universe ring on the corpse, Su Zheng's scream suddenly came from a distance. Su Li fixed her eyes and flew toward the sound. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. In the cold underground cave of the forest, Su Xianyun and his fellows leaned against the mud wall with dirty faces, and all of them were injured. These days, the people they met at the beginning were all well-matched teams, but later they met hundreds of enemy teams, which seemed to be looking for them. The 3 of them were scared out of their wits. They ran away and hid wherever they could. Well, there is still a quarter of an hour left. Su Zheng sat on the tree trunk and waved his hand, which had just been reconnected. He felt relaxed. In these 3 days, they met a lot of teams. In 3 days, they spent half of the time fighting and half of the time fleeing. Even they felt it was a little incredible that they could escape from death every time. First senior fellow apprentice, what kind of hatred do you think those people have against us? Su Zhen transmitted the sound with hatred. He remembered the team he met in the large ruins for the first time. He pierced the enemy's heart with his flying sword, but the man bit off his palm before he died. If Su Xianyun didn't come in time and cut off the man's head, his hand might have been eaten by the man. Su Xianyun covered his chest and coughed slightly. He shook his head. You ask me, but who can I ask? Maybe we will know the answer after we go out. After that, he glanced at Su Li, who sat quietly in the corner, with a strange look in his eyes. Chapter 428. In the past 3 days, there had been no less than 5 battles, and the enemies Su Jiuzhou encountered were the weakest. It would be unreasonable to say that it was a coincidence. Moreover, Su Jiuzhou helped Su Zhen connect his broken palm in the first battle. Her medical skills were inferior to him. Master is really insightful. She can see Su Jiuzhou's extraordinariness at a glance, Su Xianyun thought silently, and turned to look at the water leak on the ground. As time went by, no one wanted to think about anything else. They just wanted to leave this place of trouble as soon as possible. The number of enemies they saw in the past few days was far more than the number of disciples who came to the tea party. It was not a test, but a suicide mission. Seeing that the water in the water leak had reached the bottom, Su Zhen couldn't help whispering, soon, drip. Drip. Until the last drop of water fell, 3 days were up. At this moment, Su Xianyun and the other 2 people's hearts stopped beating, looking forward to the arrival of the so-called space exclusion force. But after a long while, time was still flowing, and the cave was still the cave. What they breathed in was still the moist air. Nothing had changed. Su Xianyun's face gradually turned pale, and his body trembled slightly. He took out the jade slip and squeezed it hard until it cracked into 2 halves. How could this be? Su Zhen grabbed the broken jade slip, and his eyes were full of disbelief. Why didn't we go back? Is it because the 3 days are not up yet? Su Wenbing's face was pale, and he murmured, it's all a lie. We are trapped here. Impossible. Su Zheng's eyes were red. He suddenly stood up and shouted, how could the master give up on us? We are the 3 most talented people in the second branch. It's absolutely impossible. What a bother. Su Li sighed. She just wanted to do something with the help of the tea party. How could there be so many accidents? At this moment, there was a sudden rush of footsteps outside the cave. The voices of Su Zheng and the other 2 people stopped abruptly, and their eyes slowly turned to the entrance covered by vines. There were hundreds of breaths outside. A team of 100 alien clans. The blood on the faces of Su Xianyun and the other 2 people faded instantly, and the same thought came to their minds. It's over. We are doomed. Su Xianyun trembled and took a deep breath. Get out. Even if I die, I can't die here in vain. Su Li looked at him in surprise. There were not many people who were so stupid these days. Although Su Zheng and Su Wenbin were trembling violently, they forced themselves to straighten up when they heard Su Xianyun's words. They lifted the vines and walked out. When the foreign cultivators saw the 4 of them, they all burst into laughter and said a bunch of things. Although they couldn't understand what they were saying, they were unsurprisingly mocking them. Despair hit them like a tide. Su Xianyun and the other 2 were frozen and confused. The disparity was too great. 1 against 100, how could they escape alive? Su Xianyun took a deep breath. After the panic, he calmed down first. He unsheathed his flying sword and hovered in front of him. With red eyes, he said hoarsely, scatter and run. If he couldn't escape, he would kill a few more. Don't let the fiendish cultivators look down on us righteous cultivators. There's no need to run. Su Li, who had been silent for a long time, finally spoke and looked into the distance. What? Su Xianyun was stunned for a moment. Then he saw a commotion at the back of the alien team in front of him. A huge fiery red blade swept through the crowd. In an instant, a dozen people were cut in half at the waist, and their blood spilled. Ha 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 ha. A bunch of weak alien chickens. Look at your Armageddon. Wild laughter came. Su Xianyun heard the familiar whisper and was overjoyed. It's the senior of our Qingshui circle. We are saved. Only practitioners of Yuanying realm could transform their shape into a blade. Don't be happy too early. Su Li poured a basin of cold water on Su Xianyun to calm him down. His eyes fell on Su Li and couldn't move away. Junior sister apprentice Jojo, how do you know there will be a senior of Yuanying realm behind the team to save us? Su Xianyun couldn't help but ask. Before Su Li answered, he heard a furious roar from the alien team. He turned around and saw a 2-meter-tall scarlet practitioner colliding with the fiery red blade, making a loud noise. Blocked? There are also practitioners of Yuanying realm in the alien race. Senior, you can't fight with 2 fists against 4 hands. We are just a drop in the bucket. What should we do? Su Xianyun and others stared at the battle intently and showed a worried look at the same time, but they didn't notice that Su Li suddenly approached the battle. Blockhead, hurry up. I'm going to die. In the crowd, Su Yang cursed at the top of his voice. Surrounded by the fiery red giant blade, he tried his best to resist, but he still couldn't block the attacks from all directions, especially the 2-meter-tall scarlet practitioner who was the main attacker. Every time the mountain-like power hit him, his internal organs would be shaken. Blood had already soaked his clothes and dripped down along the corner of his clothes. As his words left his mouth, the entire ground shook violently. Countless earth spikes emerged from the ground without any warning, instantly penetrating the physical defenses of the foreign race cultivators. In less than a breath of time, 40 to 50 foreign race cultivators were skewered into bloody gourds. Su Yang barely avoided the indiscriminate attack of the thorns underground. He gasped, and his voice was so hoarse that he could hardly speak. Blockhead, you still want to kill me at this time? Fuck your ancestors. Seeing that the team of 100 people he brought suffered a heavy loss, leaving less than 30 people, the scarlet practitioner's eyes were filled with endless anger, and his muscles trembled violently. As the trembling blood-red light faded, a ray of golden light appeared. When this ray of golden light appeared, Su Yang shuddered instinctively, as if he was stared at by an extremely horrible thing. What the hell is that? Su Yang's eyes widened, and he controlled his body to retreat frantically. He felt a fatal crisis. The alien practitioner in this state must not be confronted head-on. Crack! The scarlet practitioner stared at Su Yang. Suddenly, with a roar, his huge figure suddenly disappeared from the place. At this moment, Su Yang's heart stopped beating immediately. A huge pressure came from behind, but he couldn't avoid it. Get away! Ah! Su Yang roared wildly. His bones burst one after another, and blood gushed out. After paying such a price, he actually turned around in time and put his hands in front of his chest to defend himself. At the same time, Su Mu also appeared from the concealment tactical matrix. He spat out a mouthful of blood and forcibly made a gesture with his hands. In the blink of an eye, a thick ice wall was set up between Su Yang and the scarlet practitioner, almost brushing Su Yang's nose and rising into the sky. In the next moment, the scarlet fists with golden light finally arrived. Boom! The huge shock wave set off a gust of wind. The nearby alien practitioners vomited blood and retreated. Su Xianyun and others who were far away were also blown so hard that they couldn't open their eyes. The alien practitioner is so powerful. What happened? Su Xianyun tried to open his eyes, but what he saw made him completely stunned. It was a black gauze fluttering in the wind. Su Jojo. When did she? Crack. Su Yang's arms were twisted, and he flew out like a kite with a broken string. He fiercely smashed into the hard mountain rock and spat out a mouthful of blood. His pupils dilated for a moment before they focused again. He struggled out of the mountain wall with all his might and charged towards the bloody shadow again. Sumu stared at the Scarlet Practitioner coldly. Ice crystals formed on his solemn face, flashing with cold light. He breathed out cold air, and the water vapor around him condensed into sharp arrows, shooting at the back of the Scarlet Practitioner. However, the arrows only embedded on the surface of the skin and couldn't penetrate deep. Not only the strength increased, but also the defense. Sumu's cold eyes were full of solemnity. He didn't make any move, but the surrounding temperature suddenly dropped, and the ice spread rapidly from under his feet. In the blink of an eye, several alien practitioners who slowly surrounded him were frozen into ice cubes, which were broken by the wind. The Scarlet Practitioner didn't even look at those unlucky dead guys. His pneuma and blood were boiling as if it was inexhaustible. He broke the ice with one punch. As the ice chips swirled, the bloody shadow flashed. Sumu's pupils shrank. As soon as he covered his whole body with ice, he felt a sharp pain on his head. He was smashed into the ground like Mount Tai, leaving only half of his body on the ground. Cough, cough, cough. Sumu's 7 orifices were bleeding, and he was dizzy. The ice could no longer be maintained and all melted. The black shadow raised his fists over his head, and the pressure of death came again. Blockhead. Su Yang was so angry that his eyes almost popped out, but he couldn't save him in time. At this critical moment, a black gauze phantom appeared beside the bloody shadow. At this moment, Su Yang's blood-stained face froze for a moment, and tears suddenly appeared in his eyes. His hoarse shout resounded through the nothingness. "Senior Su, help me." Sumu looked up in a trance, and saw a scene that he would never forget. A girl in white and black gauze came, without a trace of anger. She stretched out her soft hand, grabbed the back of the bloody shadow, and suddenly threw him backward. The alien practitioner who showed great power let out a scream of horror, and was thrown into the sky lightly like a piece of white paper. Su Li tiptoed lightly, also rose into the nothingness, and stopped beside the bloody red practitioner. The scarlet red practitioner stared at Su Li with a ferocious face. The deep-rooted hatred made Su Li frown slightly. When she was about to ask for more proof, she suddenly sensed that the scarlet red practitioner's body was suddenly in a mess. Her eyes changed slightly, and she kicked the bloody red practitioner to a higher nothingness. Then, the bloody red practitioner, who was as powerful as a god, turned into fireworks and exploded with a boom. Sumu was even more in a trance. It turned out that the enemy that they couldn't defeat in a bloody battle was so weak. It turned out that what Su Yang said was true. The bloody rain fell one after another, and the alien practitioners were stunned for a moment, but they didn't run away. Instead, they roared desperately and rushed to Su Li, and began to prepare the power of self-explosion in their bodies. Su Li frowned, and quickly controlled a few. But there were still a dozen alien practitioners who succeeded in self-explosion, setting off bursts of shock waves. An indescribable tragedy spread silently from the bloody rain. After sealing the pneuma and blood of several captives in her hands, Su Li reached out and rescued Su Mu from the ground. Su Yang dragged his 2 drooping arms and limped over. His bones were visible in some places, but he didn't care. He said with a smile, "Senior, our test is completed, right? Our strength may be nothing in front of you, but as long as there is a chance, we will definitely improve our strength as fast as possible, even if we have to go through a mountain of swords or a sea of fire." "What test?" Sumu wiped the blood off his face, looking blank. Su Yang smiled mysteriously and transmitted the sound in a low voice. "In short, it's a good thing. This space didn't restrict the use of carrier runes." Su Yang wanted to ride on Su Li's coattails, so he had been sending carrier runes to Su Li for 3 days until Su Li said a sentence. "If you want to follow me, you can. Prove your strength first." So, everything was reasonable. Su Li was silent and looked at the sky. After a long time, she stretched out her hand and caught a drop of pale golden blood. She seemed to be talking to herself, or asking, why? She didn't understand what kind of hatred could make them commit suicide without hesitation. The bloody shadow practitioner clearly had a chance to survive. Chapter 429. Wonderful Pop-Up Window Free Reading. Su Xianyun stared at the blood rain falling from the sky and was speechless for a long time. What on earth did he see just now? Su Zheng touched his face and asked foolishly, "Senior fellow apprentice, am I dreaming?" Su Wenbing suddenly understood. He remembered that Su Li was alone but not injured. The 3 white spots on the wall. It turned out that someone attacked her at that time, but they couldn't hurt her. "Hey, you 3 silly boys over there. Come and clean up the battlefield," Su Yang shouted. Su Xianyun and others immediately came to their senses and hastened their pace to go over. He also recognized that these 2 seniors in Yuanying realm were the 2 who sat with Su Jiuzhou in the guest hall of Yushu sect. Su Jiuzhou. What kind of person did the master invite? Does the master really know the details of this woman? Su Xianyun couldn't help but think, but his mind was in a mess at the moment, and he couldn't think of a reason. It was not advisable to stay here for a long time. The 3 of them cleaned up the battlefield quickly. After collecting all the universe rings, Su Li carried several unconscious practitioners of alien clans and returned to the previous cave. She took out the tactical matrix plate for camouflage and unfolded it. The 10th grade tactical matrix plate. Su Mu took a second look at it. At this moment, he was convinced that Su Li's realm of tactical matrix was higher than his. Snap! In the narrow cave, Su Li left the unconscious alien practitioners and looked at Su Yang and Su Wenbing. She suddenly said without any reason, "Who will explain first?" Su Xianyun and the other 2 sat aside obediently. Looking at Su Li, whose temperament was completely different from before, no one dared to speak first. The stubble of Su Yang's arm bones was still exposed. He bit an elixir in his mouth and was about to apply it on the broken arm bones. Hearing Su Li's question, he smacked his mouth and looked at Su Mu, whose face was full of cracks. He immediately swallowed the elixir and said, "Blockhead, your head is injured. Let me explain first. In fact, it's nothing. This is not Tiannan Chaos Zone, but it's not far from here." Tiannan Chaos Zone. Su Zheng and Su Wenbing were bewildered. Clearly, they had never heard of it. Su Xianyun was shocked when he heard the words. He murmured to himself in a trembling voice, This is the Tiannan Chaos Zone. Isn't it said that there are still a few years before?" Su Yang glanced at him in surprise and said, "Su Daiyin, that old woman, knows a lot." Su Li frowned slightly. Su Yang grinned awkwardly and immediately turned to the topic, "Blockhead, and I have verified a lot of things while rushing to your place these 2 days. Here is probably a small passage produced by the instability of space before the chaos zone opens. Powerful people can't come in. But if only people from the chaos zone come in, Qingshui's circle will definitely be invaded. So, we are transmitted here to stop those madmen before the passage is officially opened. Powerful people can't enter." Su Li thought for a while and asked, "What's the limit of strength?" Su Yang wanted to scratch his head, but when he looked at his hands, he could only smile helplessly and said, "Blockhead, and I thought it was the early stage of Yuanying realm, but now it seems that it is obviously not the case. We don't know the specific limit." The strength that the practitioner with blood shadow broke out was definitely far beyond the early stage of Yuanying realm. Otherwise, with the cooperation of the 2 of them, they would be able to defeat the practitioner of the same level. Su Li pondered for a moment and said, "What will happen if the strength of the people who come in exceeds the limit?" "The space will collapse." Su Yang spread out his hands, "This space is not stable enough. If it really collapses, I'm afraid that everyone will die in it." Su Xianyun and the other 2 were shocked. Su Zheng couldn't help but ask, then, how do we get out? Su Yang rolled his eyes and said angrily, how do I know? People in your Jojo region are really ruthless. 1,000 years ago, 90% of the talents in Qingshui Circle were killed. This time, you threw all the young practitioners into this damn place without saying a word. Now I really wonder if all the seniors in your Jojo region have rebelled and become the lackeys of the alien clans. Su Xianyun was silent. He just heard a few words from Su Daiyin. On this issue, he had no right to speak at all. As for Su Wenbing and Su Zheng, they had never even heard of the Tiannan Chaos region, let alone talk about it. Su Li glanced at Su Mu, who was still healing his head. Then she looked back at Su Yang and said in a gentle tone, you can tell me what you think. I have an idea, but with my insignificant strength. Su Yang paused and looked at Su Li with inexplicable hope. Su Li narrowed her eyes slightly, and her clear pupils seemed to reflect a clear spring. She knocked on the stone beside her hand and said, if you want to go out alive, don't think about so many crooked ideas. Ahem, Su Yang coughed and didn't feel embarrassed. He continued, although Blockhead and I have been dormant in the Su family for many years, we are still from the holy sects and have a vision. This space is unstable, but it doesn't mean that there is no exit. Moreover, the exit must be set in the most stable place of the space. According to the law of the small mysterious realm collapsing from the outside, the exit of this space must be in the center of the mysterious realm. Su Yang said. He didn't care that Su Xianyun and the other two's expressions changed. He gestured with his drooping arm, so, only those with great strength can constantly break the surface to test the strength of the space and the trend of the stability of the space. Then we can find the exit in the middle and go out from here. After Su Yang finished his words, Su Xianyun and the other two looked at Su Li at the same time. Even Su Mu opened his eyes and looked at her with hope in his eyes. No one wanted to die here in vain, and so did he. Su Li supported half of her cheek with her hand, and her eyes fell on several alien practitioners on the ground. She was silent. The more Su Yang explained, the more doubts she had in her heart. The hatred of alien practitioners originated from the battle between the two realms. But why did every alien practitioner face death with equanimity? This was the biggest doubt. Secondly, the pawns from the Jojo region were no more than 1,000 in Jindan realm. For the alien practitioners in the entire space, they were no different than delivering food to them. What could they do to stop the alien practitioners? Even Su Yang knew how to find the exit. Those alien practitioners were not all fools. How could they not go? Finally, there was the biggest doubt. Su Li suddenly raised her head and stared at Su Yang, which made the latter's heart shrink. Before he could speak, Su Li asked coldly, why do you want to follow me? If you can't explain it clearly, just stay here. Su Yang was stunned, and the smile on his face slowly disappeared. At this moment, without warning, Su Mu suddenly knocked out Su Xianyun and the other two, and said in a deep voice, let me tell you. Su Li's eyes flashed, and she nodded gently. After a long while, Su Li looked at Su Yang, whose eyes were red, and Su Mu, who was still expressionless. She shook her head and sighed, I'm not a garbage collector here. Hearing this, Su Yang tried his best to restrain his expression, but he couldn't hide the disappointment in his eyes. Whoosh! Su Li got up and put away the matrix plate. She walked to the exit of the cave and stopped, saying, what are you doing? Huh? Su Yang raised his head in astonishment. When he looked up, he saw the girl turned around and showed a rare smile. However, the strength of you two is not too bad. Senior, Su Yang pursed his lips and couldn't hide the excitement in his eyes. When he was about to say something, he saw Su Mu suddenly stood up and saluted respectfully. He raised his head and said resolutely, I believe in my intuition. As long as you don't mind, I will follow you until death. Blockhead, when did you learn to be glib? Su Yang widened his eyes and stood up angrily. He turned to look at Su Li and showed a big smile, Senior, I am different from Su Mutu. In the future, if you ask me to go east, I will never go west. Even if I betray the holy sects, I will do it in a minute. Su Li glanced at Su Yang and didn't say anything. She stretched out her hand and released He. In the blink of an eye, Su Xianyun and the other two fainted people were swallowed into her stomach. Su Yang and Su Mu only saw a black shadow flash by, and then Su Xianyun and the other two people disappeared. They couldn't help but be confused. What was that just now? Don't appear in front of Su Xianyun and others in the future. I will erase their memories. Su Daiyin is a good seedling, and I don't want to let her go. After it is done, you can wait. Putting away He, Su Li gave a faint warning and turned to go out. Su Yang and Su Mu looked at each other and the ground. After thinking for a while, they followed her at the same time. No one killed the unconscious alien practitioners. With Su Li's meticulous thinking, it was impossible for her to forget to kill them. The only explanation was that she didn't want to kill them. Su Li walked out of the catacombs and saw the two limping up. She couldn't help but frown. She ran the Ghost Valley meditation direction instantly and transformed 10% of the genuine energy in her body into 2 balls of green light and threw them to the two. In this life, she didn't practice the Ghost Valley meditation direction. But with the high level of Sueyu tactics, she could transform all kinds of holy methods. The Ghost Valley meditation direction was just a top holy method, and she could transform it easily. As soon as Su Yang and Su Mu came out of the catacombs, they saw a ball of green light rapidly enlarging in front of them. Both of them were nervous. They were seriously injured, and it was too late for them to avoid it. They could only accept the green light. The moment the green light was integrated into their bodies, it immediately turned into a majestic vitality and permeated into every piece of flesh and blood in their bodies. The broken bones made a cracking sound, and the flesh and blood grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. Su Yang had never enjoyed such treatment, and he almost cried out in comfort. The cracks on Su Mu's face and head were also repaired quickly as if time went back. In a short time, except for the blood stains on their bodies, there were no more wounds. Su Yang raised his hands and squeezed them hard. After the comfort, he was full of disbelief. How could there be such a healing method in this world? If I had known it, I wouldn't have taken the Tian Bao elixir. That elixir is worth 100,000 upper-grade spiritual stones, which is enough for me to practice for a long time. Su Yang was so distressed. He didn't know whether Su Li would press him to the ground and rub him hard if she knew his first thought. Chapter 430. The Poisonous Wife. Chapter 430, Chi Mo Realm. Currently typing, please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.